And here we are. Welcome to the special edition of the Cavern of Chaos. Uh, Today we are on my channel instead of Jared's channel, and Jared's not available. He has a family thing to do, and he's not sure. He wasn't sure that he was going to be home in time. So here I am. Wilson is probably busy. He probably has some work to do because he didn't answer. Which means that for the moment I am flying solo. I may have the presence of a friend of mine in maybe an hour or so, but until then, let me entertain you, as Robbie Williams would say. Uh, so probably going to show off some comics later, and since I'm still alone, what I am going to do is share the StreamYard link with you. Comic Crack is here. Hello, Comic Crack. Are you driving, Terrence? Because you can come in if you want. I'm flying solo for the moment. And Werewolf is here. What's up? I'm going to be keeping the. Actually, let me pin the message up top, and that way anyone can join in if they want to. And Eric P is here as well. Okay, no problem. Well, if you get home before I finish, you can join if you want. You too, Darren. You just woke up. Do you have anything to do? It's already Saturday in Australia. I kind of wanted Wilson here because I had some things to show him, but okay. So today let's talk formats. Uh, Whenever we have a conversation about this, and Jared has this definition of what he calls the people who wait for the trade, because people who buy the comic are are the suckers, and people who wait for the trade are the assholes because we buy the comic cheaper when it's reprinted. But sometimes it doesn't get reprinted in the original format, and we have stuff like this: Bucky O'Hare by Larry Hama and Michael Golden, uh, which I bought a few years ago, and this is manga sized and in black and white. Yeah, I have a European album for later. Hello, SBPT. You have the StreamYard link up top if you want to join. But yeah. Oh, but the thing about American fans is that generally they are purists in size, and they don't like things to come in any way that's not a 32-page comic with the exact dimensions. I happen to like this very economic size. And hello,
Hello.
hello, hello, Eric. How
How
are
are you?
you?
Is that light bothering you? I can turn it off.
No, no problem.
I figured I'd jump in and say hello. Been
Cool.
following along for a while now, so
Hmm. So you know Bucky O'Hare?
I know the name. I don't think I've ever read the comic. Is that Larry Hama? For some reason, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it was written by Hama, and it has art by Michael Golden.
Okay.
So let me give myself the solo layout so I can show some art. So this is black and white, and it is typical. You can recognize the Michaal Golden layouts, although this is a lot more cartoony. If you're familiar with his Marvel work,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. So,
But I like this format because it's cheaper. I can fit it into fit it easily in the bookshelf with the novels, and I got hold of the story in it, so not missing anything. This thing is what, 196 pages. Yeah.
so this is the 80s Hama stuff that I'm most familiar with.
Hmm.
This just happens to be the volume I have next to me. But never did read Bucky O'Hare. This is G.I. Joe Real American Hero, Volume
Hmm.
10, which is a Marvel run. So highly recommended adventure stuff for anybody that's interested. And now that they're re-releasing it in big trades, it's going to be more accessible than ever. So
Yeah, I was always more of a Transformers fan than GI Joe, so I never read the GI Joe comic. But I for decades I've been hearing people saying that that's what got them into comics, because they knew the GI Joe brand, they picked it up in the newsstand, and then
yeah.
they'd start getting other comics after reading GI Joe.
Well, I always say those comics were better than they had any right to be, mainly due to Hama seeing, I think, the opportunity to, use his military background, his Vietnam experience, and also his interest in ninjas from the Japanese stuff that he was looking at, and kind of under the radar, because I think they probably thought, oh, license book, as long as it comes out and gets, toys sold, we don't really care. So it allowed him to do what he wanted and just like solid adventure comics, basically.
And Marvel came up with all of the backstory.
Yeah.
Hasbro hired Marvel to do all that, even for the toy line. Um, the Transformers had some descriptions of the characters' personalities in the back, and those were written by the Marvel people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. You didn't go to you don't have a local LCS, do you?
I have two near me.
Okay. But you're not going weekly then.
No, no.
Okay.
And I decided to go for the trades for
Sure.
years. It got to a point where the I've noticed that the comics were coming out in chapters instead of
Ah,
issues.
yeah.
So there's really no point in reading a chapter, waiting a month, and I'll just wait for the whole thing.
So I find that I like going on a regular basis because I have a very good local comic shop that's not too far from where I live. And you're right. There are some things like I picked up this week. This is one of the books I picked up that I really like, and this is going to be a 5-issue mini series, and it will definitely come out in a hardcover or trade because the other ones there have been previous minis, but I've never read them, so I was like, oh, I'll get the first issue and see if I like it. You familiar with Hard Case Crime at all?
Not really.
So they are a book publisher. They started off doing reprints of 50s and 60s style crime noir novels and then books in that style. And at some point they started doing comics. So this is the Minky Woodcock girl the girl called Cthulhu. It's a great cover, but I really like the interior art as well. Cover up the boobs there if I can get, yep, so that people can see the kind of art in here. So, I mean, this will come out in a collection, but I like this well enough that I'm going to keep on getting the singles. So, and that was this week. So, let me see. We have another one. I won't pull this one out. I'll just show the cover of this one. This is Rockabilly Vampiro Apocalypse, which is also kind of a like horror book that came out this week, and I knew nothing about this or the uh, artistic team, so I figured I would check them out. And now that I've got the first issue, I really like this issue as well. This was a lot of fun, so I'm definitely going to get more and potentially get the trade when it comes out, and either pass this along to somebody else or maybe get the trade for my my comic loving friends. So
Yes, the fact that we we have the comic book format. It kind of allows you to do idiosyncratic
Yeah.
genre combinations like that one.
Well, and like I said, for me, it's the opportunity to try something out, to check something out without, yeah, it's a little bit of an investment, but it's not a big investment.
Sure. Yeah, the one thing that I also like to do when I buy the trades is because, as you know, I like knowing about the history of comics, and whenever you have stuff like this. So this is the a trade collection of DNA agents, also in the small black and white format. I I'm in another country. I have two comic shops, and they are mostly for new comics. I am not going to hunt down issues of DNA agents,
Oh, I
but
got you.
something like this comes out, and there now I have DNA agents in my collection.
Was that First Comics or
Uh,
Eclipse?
this was Eclipse.
Okay. Do you know this book, which I've had on my shelf for multiple years?
I
Uh,
happen to.
Very nice, but I like the format, and this is kind of Buzik's like, dry run for Thunderbolts in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, yeah. And considering he made it a few years before that, let's see, 1987, 88.
Yeah, I mean, largely, I think it's the book that showed that he could do something interesting, that he could turn things in on time, that he could turn in something that was sellable in the marketplace, and that's how you get your foot in the, or you did get your foot in the door in those days. So
Mhm. Yeah, the other day we're talking to Jared, and he had read when Neil Adams had said that if you don't make it in comics until you're 19, you're not going to make it. But Kurt Busiek is a late bloomer
yeah,
because he was doing this stuff in the 80s. He also did Power Man and Iron Fist. And it didn't make it until 1994 when he did Marvels. So I guess if you stick around long enough doing middle of the pack, you'll have the chance to shine soon enough.
yeah, I think there's also an element of you prove yourself to an editor, you build those relationships, and then you're like, I want to take a wild swing with the
Hmm.
Marvels or Thunderbolts or something like that. They're a little more likely to be. We know this guy's going to turn something in on time. We know that this is going to have a place or it's going to be sellable, and that paying your dues really does pay off in that way.
Hmm. And another thing about this comic is that it's I'm familiar. I was familiar with James Fryart before reading this, but this is a guy who never really made it,
Yeah.
and but he's actually quite good. The characters are very expressive. The action has some very fluid movement, like here. Let me get myself.
I think also something like this does work in black and white, despite the
Hmm.
fact, as I recall, it was originally in color.
Yeah, yeah. Until computer coloring uh, came along, all of the artists drew for black and white,
Yeah.
and coloring was secondary. But for the licensing, it worked because they had no idea if somebody in some obscure country they could print in color or not. The French continued doing black and white with the superhero comics well into the 80s,
Okay.
which is kind of weird because they could do color if they wanted. But the people who published the superheroes in France, they were usually considered um, the not very trustworthy people. They were equated with the pornographers, even though there were some comics in the same format which were really spicy, and you could buy them in newsstands, but they had they came wrapped in plastic, so you could really buy them if you were see them if you were a kid.
So I've never been to France, but I thought that pornography was a-okay there.
Not quite. So see, the France had a comics code 5 years before the U.S.
Okay.
That comics code was legally binding. It was passed on the French Parliament, and it's been described as an unholy alliance between the Catholic Church and the French Communist Party. Because they both wanted the same thing. The Catholic Church thought that that American American culture um, was was immoral, promoted immorality, and the Communist Party didn't want to have American culture coming into France when they were trying to get established.
Ah,
Uh,
well, I have to agree that American culture is immoral, but maybe not for the same reasons that they think. But
yeah, no, it had nothing to do because that affect the law as was written affected what they called youth publications. So it kind
okay.
of also affected books. But in the 1960s, it started changing. The law stayed in the book, it stayed in effect, but there was less of an emphasis on making sure it was followed. So by they had magazines like Charlie Manswell, and then they had the stuff that the publisher Alba Michel was putting out, and then Charlie Hebdo came along, and by that time they okay, there's no way we can control this. So if as long as you weren't doing out and out pornography,
Mhm.
you could sell it in places where the kids could
Ah,
reach them,
okay.
and if it was just boobs, nobody really paid any
Yeah.
attention.
So I have spent, like I said, I haven't been to France, but I have spent some time in the Nordic countries, and definitely, at least 20 years ago, if not more, there were definitely more mainstream comics on the newsstand at the grocery store there than I saw in America. Um, and some of that was, like funny animal stuff that was popular with children. But I do actually have a DC JL, was it that JLA Morrison run. I've got like the first 6 issues in Swedish that came in a trade paperback. So
Yeah,
once,
it got to the point where the French gave up on magazines. A lot of the publishers they had their own magazine formats, and usually the stuff would get collected into anthologies. Actually, I'm going to show you one over here. Okay, so this is X-Men 2099. So this is,
Mhm.
but it's got Doctor Doom 2099 on the cover. And
Gotcha.
because this was the Doom conquers America storyline, it ran through both the X-Men 2099 and Spider-Man 2099 comic. They had all of the other 2099 heroes in here, so it's just a regular comic. And the opening page is from Doom, and then they have a Ghost Rider story, and the X-Men is only at the end, but it's also part of the it's also part of the storyline. So there's Bloodwing. Oh, this the Portuguese publisher copied one thing from the Brazilian publisher, uh, which was publishing art that readers would send them, and so
Okay.
sometimes it wasn't really very good,
Well,
uh,
it doesn't
but
need to be though.
yeah, yeah,
It's reader engagement, right? And
exactly, yeah.
the art might not be good, but it might give somebody the impetus to like continue to refine their skills because they're getting a little bit of attention.
Hmm.
And there's also something to be said for, stylistic stuff.
Hmm.
Let's see. Have I got any of his books here? Of course, you get to look at the side of my head as I look through my books. Um, where is that one? It must be in the other room. I have some Richard Sala stuff around here, and he's definitely not a traditional style artist, but he's got his own style that's worth checking out if you're looking for something a little bit different.
Yeah. Here's another one. This is from the 80s when I started reading comics. So this is the from the Shooter Paris run,
Okay.
and when Ultron came back and he mind wiped Hank Pym. He thought he was Ant-Man, and they created Joe Castor. So as you can see, this is a Wonder Man's short-lived green and red costume
Oh yes.
that that Paris had come up with. I actually liked it because I was 7, but I understand why people thought it was not. It was very good. It's kind of busy. Uh,
So this I have This is not something that's actually from my youth. This is something I rebought about 3 years ago. But
Cool.
this was
Yeah.
maybe the first graphic novel that I got back in the 80s because it was one of the first Marvel ones I put out. But to remember, it's important to remember that once upon a time, Marvel did collect these kind of storylines, and that's a great cover. I mean, this is the Dark Phoenix saga, um, and I think it's like 7 issues or something. It's a handful of issues, so it's not one of those epics, which I do like those. I've got a bunch of those, but this is the kind of thing that in 1986 or something you could hand to your junior high friends and pass it around. I think
Hmm.
that's where my copy ultimately vanished to. But I mean, this was a great gateway for readers of that age group, and I think that Marvel and DC would be smart to take some of the like the most high profile and well thought of these kinds of like short runs of less than 10 comics and put them in a format like this. I mean, I don't have one of the compact ones uh, handy, but this is not like is this a full size? Let me see.
Yeah.
So I've got the She-Hulk Epic Collection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's maybe a little bit shorter and maybe a little bit longer, so that
Hmm.
you can kind of see the She-Hulk, popping out at the top.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not completely shrunk down, but it's definitely not the same. I got comics here. This is the new Uncanny X-Men from this week. So formats kind of in the same size factor.
Hmm.
Actually, it's a little bit wider. But this is, like I said, this is the kind of thing I would love to see more of. Small runs that you can hand to people and be like, hey, you might like this.
Yeah. DC's been over the years. DC has always been a lot smarter than Marvel over this. Although right now you can't really trust them on it. But I've had a friend here in Portugal. He bought the new small format Watchmen
Yeah.
and for $10. So I think it's a good way to try to get new markets. Yes, they say that markets that the format's not really important, or that, or it's not the reason that it captivates people, but if it allows you to be put in a place where other people are more likely to reach you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, question, you're at the train station, airport, bus station. Which of these is going to fit more in the racks? I mean, I think
Yeah.
this one obviously
Hmm.
will. I have a
Exactly.
I have an actual trade paperback size book right here. This is one of those hard case crime books.
Hmm.
Um, so this form factor, and I don't have any of my compacts in the room here, but it's not too dissimilar from the trade paperbacks that you're going to find on the racks at some place. So that's why I think something that's this size makes sense from a business point of view, because you can put this in Target or Walmart or any of those other places. And you can do, 10 issues of something for $10. So it's not a huge investment.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I kind of like the epics because they have 500 pages, just as I like the essentials. But yeah, 500 pages is not practical to carry around even in a digest format.
I don't
So
have
if
this.
they can do,
Oh,
yeah, if they can do stuff in
yeah.
10
This
issues, that would
obviously
be
is
good.
the showcase rather than the essential, but I mean, I think I really do think that this is another format they should go back to experimenting with.
Hmm.
Um, because you sell some kid this and they like it, then the X-Men version of this is something they might be interested in next. And these were like $20 for 25 issues or whatever they crammed in there. So
But that's a good one. Yeah, I grew up reading on that size, so and so yeah, this works. I mean, the comics these were 80 pages.
yeah.
And in the beginning, 80 pages was good because they used to cut pages. For example, if they did two issues of the same character, two stories of the same character in one issue, they'd get rid of the recap pages. So you could always fit more.
Oh yeah.
But but when the U.S. stories went up from 17 to 22 pages, it became harder to cut pages off, even with the recaps. So what they would usually do is they would use Marvel Comics Presents stories as fillers.
That makes sense. Well, the neat thing about those Marvel Comics Presents is a lot of times you got interesting stuff from people that were doing tryouts that were being experimental. So, maybe you'd get, I don't know, like a Mike Mignola or somebody who didn't exactly fit the house style,
Yeah.
who was, or, whoever, Eric Larson or, whoever it was that they were trying out.
Yeah, for stuff that's a little bit different, the Brazilians would do in U.S. size, like Lex Luthor, the unauthorized biography. This came out in a regular U.S. size, although they called it deluxe format, because if that is normal, this is not normal. But even then, it had better paper inside, and you could reproduce the colors. Because for their digest comics, they got the black and white art. They would get the original comics to see what the color looked like, and then they would they would do the colors themselves.
Yeah, color seems to be the big thing that people complain about with the reprints. And what I definitely see is the modern reprints of stuff that was printed on modern, slick paper definitely reprints better when you're looking at a trade paperback. But like this G.I. Joe was originally printed on, newsprint. So the colors don't look the same on the slick paper that the comics can be on. Now, apparently, the Skybound stuff that's just coming out is on something more approximating a newsprint than the slick paper here, but it's never going to be the same. And I don't know if the coloring ruins it for you. I'm sorry, but this is the way you can read it. This is the way you can read it.
Hey, and it's not even that bad. I mean, I sometimes think they should correct mistakes that came out in the original comic.
Yeah,
like in the 60s when Stan Lee would have the Spider-Man be called Peter Palmer, and when the Hulk came out as Bob Banner, and I think they should correct these. I mean, Tintin, when Hergé started doing the albums in color, he didn't just do the albums in color; he completely redrew entire graphic novels.
Yeah.
In the from the 30s originally to the 1950s. So
the other thing is, you get something like this Jack Kirby Commandy book.
Yeah,
I think this probably looks better than the original comics, because the original comics are just going to be, unless they're in pristine condition, are just going to be, bled across the page in a mess. Where this is, this is crisp and clear, and the colors are defined. And this is not on the slick paper. This is on more of a, I guess, a matte paper. So you get that color saturation.
But it does work. Let me see if I have a couple of reprints. Okay. No. Oh yeah. Yeah, like Deathlock, the Deathlock. So the cover always gets recolored, so because they take advantage of the better paper. But the inside, everything is just so much brighter. But it does work, because you kind of get the feeling that that's what they intend. They colored the stuff brighter because they knew that the paper wasn't as good. Although the way that the original comics you find them in stores nowadays, the colors do fade. So when they reprint like this, it does approximate the color that as it came out in the 1970s, as opposed to what you see in the originals after becoming old.
Speaking of which, let's take a look at an original 70s comic. I got this in my local comic shop a couple months ago. Yeah. Marvel Chiller. So I think this is like 73, 74, somewhere in there. And this is a pretty decent, copy.
Hello, Wilson.
But this is what the colors and the printing are looking like now. That's not horrible, but it's not as crisp as if it was a reprint.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we got Wilson.
Hello.
How are you, man?
I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm at New York Comic Con. I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah,
Yes.
we can.
Okay. So I completely forgot New York Comic Con was this week when you asked about doing the show. So
Mhm.
that's where I am right now, and I only now got a good signal to say hi. So I just didn't want to miss the show. I wanted to stop by, say hello. So and then after this, I have a Marvel's former employees event to go to. I'll be going to that later. But right now, I'm on the floor of the New York Comic Con. I wasn't planning to go to this show, but a buddy of mine got me a ticket for today, and so that's where I am.
Cool. So, so where are you exactly? What do you have around you?
I'm in the main floor, so I'm at like what would be considered the entrance. This is where I got the best signal. So the nearest publisher to me would be, I guess, Konami or Toei. So there's that booth, and then I had passed by the Marvel booth not that long ago. So this is basically what would be considered the main entrance. So you can see.
Yeah, already a lot of people there.
There is a whole lot of people here. I actually, this spot is the least amount of people of all the people, so it's just easier to walk around this way. So I'm in the area that's 2,200. So straight down there, you can see a Spider-Man. So that would be the Marvel booth. So there's Viz, uh, and I'm in like almost like the anime section. Would be I would consider. It's something called Little Nightmares 3, so I guess that's a video game. And not that far away from Viz, so that's where the publishers. Artist Alley is downstairs. I was there earlier tonight. And so that's basically where I am, but I definitely wanted to just stop by on the show and say hi.
Did you discover anything in your time wandering around? Finding new artists or comics?
Not any new comics. Atlas Seaboard is doing something now. They're making Lego toys of that old line, and which is surprising. I wasn't even aware too much about it, so I passed by their booth. So it's actually kind of cool to see Lego versions of the Atlas Seaboard stuff. That was quite surprising in general, and so it's kind of cool to see that. I was at the Heritage Auction booth not too long ago, and they had some artwork, which was funny because it's artwork that I've held for Marvel years ago. I've actually touched that artwork, and they're selling them for like $5,000, if not more. That was kind of wild, and I took some videos on that, so I'll post those up. But again, it's one of those things that's like a little crazy to see the artwork going for that much money.
Okay,
Giant.
Comic Crack is saying to keep your eyes peeled for Sean from Pop's Comics.
Where is he just walking around, or is he at the place?
I'm not sure. Terrence explained. And SBPT says to say hello to Daniel Henriquez at Todd McFarlane's place.
Okay, I haven't found those at all. And unfortunately, because my badge is only for today, this
Oh.
thing is open till like 8 o'clock. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit everything all together. But it's a little wild to be doing a show and not having to be at a table. But there's a lot of walking, and uh, I'm built for sitting at a table doing signing, not always walking these things.
Yeah, when you're a professional, you get used to sitting down. Walking is for the plebs.
Yeah, basically, or get up and walk to go to a panel or something like that. But it's wild to Penguin Random House. I used to do lettering for them.
Mhm.
It's breaking up, it looks like.
Okay, you're breaking up. Okay, yeah. Good. Wilson, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're breaking up. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
you're
just want
freezing a lot.
to just jump on, say hi, and you know, this way here.
Okay,
Enjoy the show.
okay.
Oh, so
And if you can come back, please do so, and you can tell us more of what's going on. Okay. Yeah. Oops.
All right.
Okay, that was cool. Because we have a comics event in Portugal starting this week as well. Although ours, as I usually mention, that they're more art exhibits. But I won't be going. And speaking of people who are supposed to be at that show, this is my friend Hugo from Central Comics. He also works. He has his own comic related channel in Portuguese, and he does work for the Portuguese publishers. And he talked about on his show. He talked about a bit about the event here in Portugal, but I don't think he could go because we have a few interesting guests. We're going to have Ma de Jong from the Netherlands. She has a new she she had, she did an adaptation of The Lord of the Flies in graphic novel format, 350 pages. So it's actually longer than the novel.
Nice.
And the Portuguese edition is coming out, and she's coming here. And I know that one of her graphic novels is available in English. Something about sands. I can't remember exactly what it is. And we also have this French Canadian guy called Michael. It's the third book of a trilogy about New York City in the 1920s and 30s. The first two were Giant, which was about the skyscraper builders, and Boot Black, about the shoe shines, the street urchins who became shoe shines, and the third one is Harlem. So it features the black population of New York City in the 1930s. So is coming over. It's a real shame that I don't have the time to go there or the money to go there this year, because I'd like to actually interview him, and he could sign my books. It's a shame. I think that Comic Crack is a fan. So
Yeah, that
I.
sounds like a fanographic style book. That seems like the kinds of things that they would publish or
Yeah,
drawn into locally.
I think Euro Comics has been doing digital editions of those.
Let me see. I think I might have.
Days of Sand is the M.A. de Jong comic graphic novel that came out in English.
Oh, speaking of English adaptations of French comics, this apparently I think came out in France first, but was recently published here in the States. And this is, obviously based on the David Simon book, Homicide: Life on the Streets, which spawned the television series, which is currently now streaming here in America. And I think in the UK, I don't know about in other parts of Europe. And there's a couple of really great podcasts about the show. But I would love to see more of this kind of stuff in the States. I would love to see more European, and because of my interest, more Nordic and Scandinavian stuff for sure. But this came out in 2 volumes here in the States. It's amazing looking. I've read about half of the first one just because it's one of those books that you need to have the dedicated time to sit down and read, and I have not found that recently. So
yeah, the Stranger Things books have been coming out in European format in Portugal, and I don't know why. It doesn't really make much sense. And when it comes to stuff like that, right now in France, they're doing a lot of novel adaptations, and I still need to buy Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which was adapted by Emmanuel Larsenet.
Yep.
I have the Georges Best Dracula and Frankenstein. There's also a new, and the third one is with the Hunchback of Notre Dame. There's a bunch of there are 2 or 3 different adaptations of 1984, and there's also a bunch of biographies about everyone and everything. There, I remember a few years ago they did one on Frida Kahlo, uh, who was the mistress of
Yeah.
the Russian guy who was exiled in Mexico.
Yeah. She's the painter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that Cormac McCarthy one's coming out in English here in the States, and there's definitely been some talk about that. On the other hand, have you had the translations of the Parker books come your way, the Darwin Cook ones?
Yes, I can't remember if they put out all four. I know that the first three was available. Central and Central Comics can probably help me because I think you worked on those. But I did buy the original ones in English. But they put them out in Portuguese, which was a nice touch.
How about the was it the 8 Million Ways to Die one? You familiar with that at all?
I think I've heard about it, but I'm
So,
not sure what it is.
so Larry Block is a writer who was friends with Donald Westlake, who wrote the Parker books.
Mhm.
And he wrote a important series of crime novels in the U.S., the Matt Scudder books. And there was one of them that was adapted into a graphic novel. Here, I'm going to run the other room and grab it so I can show it to you.
Yeah. Cool. The Parker books by Parker graphic novels. Right. I'm getting sleepy in my. Yeah, I'm getting sleepy now. I'm forgetting everything. But Darwin Cook's Parker novels adaptations. I think 3 came out. I'm not sure about the 4th one. Well, there's one thing that I remember from the first one, which I liked because it was them explaining how the outfit works, and it looks like a one of those guidebooks. It looks like a little guidebook pamphlet,
Yeah.
but it's about how a criminal organization runs. So it's very very interesting.
So this is the 8 Million Ways to Die, a Matt Scudder mystery, and it's John K. Snyder III who did the artwork. They did make a movie out of this in the 80s with Jeff Bridges, which I like the movie, but it's not really reflective of the original novels. And that Liam Neeson film, Walk Among the Tombstone, is based on a book in this series. But, you know, it's just very moody, early 80s, late 70s style crime fiction. So the setup is that Matt Scudder is a former police officer who's not really a private investigator, but he does favors for friends for money, and he gets drawn into a case. So, you know, this, unfortunately, I don't think it's sold as well as they would have liked. Otherwise, we might have gotten some more of them. But anybody that likes those Parker books, for more than just the art, because they like the angle of the crime, they like the storytelling, highly recommend checking this one out.
Cool. Okay, so my friend Grotu seems to have come in from work, but I'm not sure if he's ready to join. Ken, you're completely black. I can see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't have your. Yeah, your camera's not coming in.
Okay, what kind of ridiculous?
Are you on the cell phone?
I'm on a cell phone. Yeah, I clicked on the. I got what you sent me on Instagram. I pasted it into Safari. Would you be able to put a link in the chat, or is that too dangerous?
No, I think I have the link pinned at the top.
Pinned at the top. Okay. Well, I'll just do it that way. I'll
Okay.
go out and go back in a different way.
All right.
All right. See you.
Okay. Got to come back.
So while he's doing that, maybe I'll take a minute to show some other comics I got this week.
Yeah.
The new Wonder Woman. I haven't read it yet, but I've been enjoying this series. I like these covers. I like the gimmicky covers. So I got that. This book is Prairie Gods #2. This is a horror book. I really like the first. issue. It's been a little while since I read it, but as I recall, it's basically a car chase issue. Yeah, this was interesting stuff. First issue of Mystique. Figure I'd just check it out. I'm not super in love with the current X-Men stuff, but I'm enjoying it well enough to pick it up. The final issue of the Tom Taylor Nightwing, which I've also enjoyed. I mean, it's not grade A comics, but it's not like D level either. There's been some interesting artistic things with this book along the way. So yeah, check that out. Jared is the one that I bought. One of the reasons I got this one, I actually like the story a lot, but this is a Scott Koblish cover, who he's always talking about. This has got the was it the ghost apes? Was it the red whatever and the ghost apes? The guy that Chris Russo was drawing a couple of months ago. So, and I think that's it for what I got this week. So, oh, we were talking about formats. I just got this in the mail. This is the Omnibus. I got this for a good price. So, I wanted to check it out. I want something that, that like I can read like 2 issues before bed or whatever, at the end of the night to kind of like wind down.
Is that from which Legion era?
This is the 5 years later, volume 2.
Okay.
So yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's when I was on a hiatus from comics, or more like exile, because it wasn't voluntary. I missed out on the Earth War collection, which would look nice next to the Great Darkness Saga hardcover.
Which there is a new edition of that coming out next spring. So, and they just released the new trade paperback, which wasn't that the discuss. There we go. Hello.
Hey, sorry about that.
No problem. Coming in from work fine.
And I went out, grabbed dinner, and I was watching you while I was eating dinner. I didn't see the whole show. So you're talking about reprinting of comics in more expensive forms collected. Is that the theme? Kind of?
Yeah.
All right.
Although since you're here and you're always talking about liking the ads in the old comics, so
that was going to be my first thing. Is I really miss the ads in these reprintings. Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the ads are kind of meaningless because the publishers outside of America, we don't have quirky ads like the Brazilians have this one. So this one kind of works as a quirky ad because it's for a projector and the binoculars. So this one kind of.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well.
But this one's pretty mainstream. This one's for a model toy plane.
Yeah. Well, the ads don't matter to me now. It's part of the nostalgic experience of picking up a comic from my youth or from my older brother's childhood and or from my dad's childhood when he read Captain Midnight and everything. It's just that's part of the experience of reading the comic. It's part of the fun because to me comics are like time machines back to another time period. And I mean if you're looking at them as strictly art, then I could see we're going to print them without these disgusting ads, but the ads are hilarious, they're wonderful, and they allow you to step right back into a 9-year-old's shoes in 1963 or 1954 or 1943, whatever. Oh, look at that's exactly like what I'm saying. An old kid.
So this is the facsimile of Police Comics #1. So yeah, I understand that as far as wanting to get the experience of reading that comic at that time. Yeah, that makes sense. But if we're talking about wanting to read the comic for the story and the art, then something like this works, I think, differently. Especially, as I recall, this was the era where they had that hideous like Toys R Us thing at the top.
Oh yeah, that was bad. But prior to say 1975, comics and the ads in them were fun.
Yeah,
Um,
here's another one from the same facsimile.
yeah. Then you get to the time period. You see, you can tell so much about the history of comics through the ads. When you get into the early 80s and all the ads are for video games, they're
Yeah,
advertising what's going to kill them. It's like when they hire a new employee and they force the guy that's been there 40 years to train the guy that's going to replace him.
Mhm.
That's what they were doing when they advertised the Atari 2600. That
Yeah.
was the death knell of comics.
well,
I
once
thought.
again, here's the Marvel chillers we were looking at earlier.
Mhm.
On
Mhm.
the back, you get whatever the hell this nonsense was. And I didn't know. I was a young child in the 70s. I don't know anybody that did any of this stuff.
No, but a lot of those ads are wonderful. But that ad is just part of the experience. It's
Yeah.
part of my childhood. I don't know. I don't know.
One thing that I liked in these old comics from the Brazilian publisher. So this is a Marvel comic, and so it's okay. They're advertising the Savage Sword of Conan here,
Mhm.
but here they're advertising New Teen Titans because they also had the rights to DC. So it was the same thing to them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm aware in
And
Europe they kind of didn't have the division between the
and
companies.
this is a local Brazilian property from the Mauricio de Souza studio.
But
So
yeah, I mean,
if you have the rights to a bunch of different characters, you advertise all of them.
well, I like it. I like those PS art books that reprint the pre-code horror comics, and they have all the ads, and they make the covers slick, and then the pages in between more feel like newsprint. I think that's a brilliant way to do it.
Let's see. I thought I might have had one of those up here, but I don't think I do. No. I have the one that reprints that infamous the space book that Alan Moore said was a big influence on him. Forget the issue offhand.
Bayugo.
That was it, like Armageddon 2000 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
The Brazilian Lex Luthor, because this was a special edition, it doesn't actually have ads. They even though it's magazine, it's stapled, so they did everything like it was the prestige format.
right.
So we were looking at this earlier, the Liberty Project book.
Yeah.
I was in the other room. I grabbed the new compact of the Catwoman just to get like a size comparison. So yeah, even these DC compact ones are a little bigger than this is.
Well, if it's reprinting a graphic novel that never had ads, I understand, but I just and a lot of it is when DC would reprint their stuff and there'd be half-page house ads for other comics, they just
Yeah,
put something else there, and it's like, no, give us that because it's cool to know what else was being sold that month. I love that. That's just part of me. Um, I guess the first book that really reprinted classic comics is for an adult market is I don't know. You tell me. I'm thinking it's this from about 1965, right?
quite possibly.
And this is Jules Pfeiffer, and it's very. The artwork is great. I mean, it's like I think like
Oops,
it's
wrong one. Sorry.
yeah.
I
I
was gonna
was
say
thinking,
go to the other one.
There we go.
it looks like they have had access to original artwork here. It it See, the problem is, it used to be that if they didn't have the original artwork, they couldn't do the reprints, and then there was all these some of these DC books that came out. These it's like the art is retraced by slave labor in another country. It's horrible, and then people read those and think that's what the golden age looks like. Well, it sucks, but It's not what it looked like. There's a childhood record my mom bought for me when I was about 5 years old in 1970, and it was probably a few years old then. It was a record from MGM Records, and it had the origin of Aquaman on one side, and then it had the origin of the Flash and Green Lantern. But it was the Golden Age Flash and Green Lantern, and now I realize that it was read word for word from this book, and so you can just use this book, and it'd be like a book and record set. And this is just a magnificent book, and
Yeah, this issue of Hulk. These comics are supposed to be for kids, but they advertise the adult stuff as well. So they have a Wolverine miniseries from Epic, and where's that other one? Nightbreed. So
yeah.
you're reading Hulk, and then you get an ad for Nightbreed
So,
by Parker.
speaking of recent reprints, this just came out this year. This is
Okay.
I think there's a second volume coming out soon, but this is the Flash Gordon Sunday comics
Yeah.
from the 30s, printed in order in a form factor that is more in line with the original printing of the comics than trying to make it into a standard book format. So
Kitchen Sink did something. Was it Kitchen Sink that did that? Like in the 80s, a whole bunch of Flash Gordon. I have those
they might have.
upstairs.
This is Mad Cave.
Okay, and then there was
But
in the early 70s there was a big nostalgia boom, because the guys that grew up in the in the 30s were kind of in their late 50s, and so
yep,
they put out all these coffee table books aimed at them. So there was this nostalgia for the 30s.
like
Yeah,
this. This
yeah,
is from 1990.
yeah, that was when the movie came out. You're right. Yeah, that's a good book too. I've got that here somewhere.
But this is a different form factor than obviously this is, which would be more in line with the actual size of the experience of reading it when it originally ran.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find. Um,
I do have semi legal reprints of the Phantom. And they're reprinting 60s stories.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've never read those, but I've seen them. Are those more like James Bond style adventures, or are they more in line with the pulps?
They're more in line with the pulps, I guess.
Okay.
Although they are somewhat tame at this stage because it's Wilson McCoy art, and Wilson McCoy just wasn't very dynamic, so it needed a lot of Lee Falk's text to tell the story.
Gotcha.
So these reprints aren't very good because they're very dark. Okay, this one has Cyberry art, but it's early Cyberry. So it's getting better, but Cyberry kind of saved the strip.
You know, we've been talking about reprints. Here's what I consider to be more like a mid-level reprint between the X-Men one that I showed earlier and what we're getting now, Dakota North, because this is not on slick paper, but it is definitely an upgrade as far as the layout, design, manufacturer, and setup of that initial X-Men graphic novel. So I think there was a period when Marvel was doing stuff like this. And, you know, Dakota North is a deep cut that's, you know, not, I don't think even a cult comic at this point. So good on them for putting it out.
Yeah.
But looking at the artwork, I mean, it's very stylistic. It's not, it's definitely not the house style.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't think this sold very well when it came out, but I do wonder if they put it out now, if there'd be a different market for it potentially.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, that comic was very 80s.
Yeah.
So it was the type of thing that you'd see on TV. But at the time, they weren't very concerned with TV, even though they had this Marvel production studio. Uh, but yeah, the fact that that thing came out when it did, Marvel was open to some experimentation, see if it worked, and I'm not sure they can do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I do kind of miss it.
I mean, we were looking at the Marvel Chillers. I think they put out a Tigra collection like that one
Really?
that I would like to get my hands on, but it didn't sell very well. So who knows how many are out there?
Well, when you
Yeah, I
can
remember
get the original comics for under $3,
Yeah.
buying a
Yeah,
high
sure,
dollar.
but yeah, okay, but you can get all the comics for $3. But if you order them from my comic shop, it's going to cost you more than than those three, because the individual issues are probably at $3. But if you try to go look for them in 50-cent bins, you have to factor in the gas that you're spending going from place to place, trying to find a very specific Marvel miniseries from the 80s, which did not sell very well at the time. And it's kind of funny because there are two ways that that miniseries exists now. Either it's people who really wanted to have it and are not going to sell it, or it's people who tried it, didn't like it, and got rid of it.
Mhm.
So you have to make sure that you find those copies that were sold.
So
Yeah.
I only reason I got these is because my local comic shop had them,
Mhm.
and they were $5
Okay.
each. So, and I have the other one that's on the other side of the room because I put it away already. But like there was more than just this in that trade paperback that came out. So
Yeah, I had the advantage of just buying those as a when I was in fourth grade, the first appearance and Marvel
yeah,
Chillers, I bought them as they came out, so it's not really a concern. But I guess I would like a deluxe version of it. It's because that was a character that I always loved. Um,
Yeah. This collection. It's not deluxe, but being almost 400 pages, it's very complete, and they do pay attention to the cover to make sure that it's modernized at least. But the rest is pretty good, and the artwork comes out all right. So
now is there back matter in there? Is there anything that's got like the stuff from the handbook for the Marvel Universe or any of concept drawings, any of that kind of stuff?
yeah, yeah. So, okay, so this is good. This is the concept. There were 2 pages of concept explaining the concept, which came out in the first appearance, but instead of being near the first appearance, they're at the back of the book. And
Well, this one has like the house ad,
mhm,
and then what do we got?
yeah, these pages are from Foom.
Let's see.
oh yeah, there was an early issue of Foom I have where she's against. I think she's against a gas pump. It was on the back cover. I don't. It was during the gasoline shortage of the '70s. I remember she was.
Mhm.
Oh, it was because they used to have put a tiger in your tank.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
it was. I'm trying to remember why she was leaning against,
yeah.
and she looked very different at that point.
And this is the reprint of the short trade paperback. The reprints the cover from the short trade paperback with Deathlock's appearance in the Captain America,
This one's
which ended the Deathlock storyline.
So this is an article from Marvel Age number 40, back to the discussion of why would they do a trade or an omni of the Marvel Age? Because they're
Mhm.
already doing stuff like this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the article, but to defray the cost of having to go and dig this out and put it in a collection like that.
Well, they ought to do an omnibus of all the issues of Foom because
Yeah.
that's. I mean, Marvel Age is interesting, but Foom was. I mean, the first several issues were laid out by Steranko, and then after that, it was really great, and that's where you really see like Wolverine characters like
Mhm.
that for the first time, and then a lot of those books are hard to get. I just happened to I subscribe. I joined Foom, and then they send you 4 issues, I think, free with your membership of Foom. but then they just kept sending them to me, so I kept getting them. And then we moved to Texas, and Lone Star Comics, mycomicshop.com, was what is the same thing. Lone Star Comics opened the summer after my 6th grade year, just a couple miles from me, the original location that would later be mycomicshop.com. And he carried foam in the store. It was not something you had to have mailed to you. And so I was buying it off the rack then, but there's a bunch of issues I'd still like to get. I don't have them all. So foam was really interesting, and uh, there was Marie Severin art. I love Marie Severin. There was art sent in by readers, and there were photographs of how people decorated their rooms, which is, decades before YouTube, where people do
Yeah.
room tours. There was this kid that had a slanted ceiling because I guess he had a room in the attic, and he had painted this gigantic green goblin close up of his face. It was magnificent. 1974 nerd culture was just magnificent. But maybe I'll dig out those films and show them maybe on tomorrow's live stream.
Yeah.
That's inspired me to do that.
Yeah. Another magazine that's kind of forgotten is Pizzazz.
Oh,
People never talk about it.
I talk about it.
So another format size we haven't talked about is the Treasury.
Oh, the Treasury was great. That's what got me into superhero comics.
So this is a recent, this is the Marvel anthology from a couple of years ago. Actually, I really like this anthology a lot, and I wish they had done more with it, because this was them letting. Let me see if I can find something here. Some artists who we don't usually see their style.
Yeah.
Have a shot. Let's see. Here's some Mitch O'Connell stuff. I actually had a chance to talk to him a couple of years ago at an event, and he said he talked to Marvel about doing a poster of this, and they were not interested. But
ridiculous.
But this size with this kind of art it kind of works very well and is great. And I don't know, I haven't compared it to what maybe like a Life magazine would have been at the time, but I could see something like that being interesting, if we still had distribution on the newsstand. This was a great anthology for finding, oddball artists or whatever.
Yeah. That was something, the 70s. I was only into monster comics in the early 70s, and then my mom bought the second Marvel Treasury, which reprinted 1960s Fantastic Four comics, and then I started plunging in early 4th grade, 1974, into the Marvel superhero comics, and not just buying only monster stuff.
Also, here's the thing that it's kind of weird by both European and American standards, which is I've shown this a few times here and there, but this is the last Kelly Green book, and Kelly Green was a comic created for the French market by Stan Drake and Leonard Starr. In the 1980s, and although they did work in comics, they made more money working in newspaper strips.
Yeah,
and it's kind of funny because I know that what was it, Catalan Communications? They put out the Kelly Green collection in the U.S., but only the first 4 books, and the 5th one probably would have sold better because the action is set in the San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh yeah.
But you can tell that Drake and Starr have no appreciation for or knowledge of the contemporary comics market, because when in the story when they talk about stealing art pages, they're only talking about newspaper strip art. Jack Kirby gets mentioned as the king of the superheroes, so very derisively.
that reprint, what I mean, is that a crime comic? Is it an adventure comic? Is it horror?
Yeah, it's sort of an adventure comic. So the main character is an insurance investigator
Okay.
and widow of a police officer. So she gets involved in adventures for which she doesn't have the physical ability, but she comes out on top.
That sounds
The
kind of like
the
a mystery kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good comparison. The artwork's easy to follow. Uh, the Although there are some parody elements. Some of the secondary characters, they're all the they do a lot of pantomime when they shouldn't. And here they are talking about pages that were stolen, and they're talking about Asterix and Little Nemo and Pogo instead of things that fans in the 1980s would try to steal, which would be superhero stuff. But to Drake and Star, they weren't really important. One thing about this comic in particular, because this came out in France first, but obviously Stan Drake wrote the script in English, and then they translated, and so the text is the way you read this translation is kind of strange because it's Portuguese translated from French translated from English. So it goes around a lot of places, and it ends up changing the meaning of what a normal conversation would be. I mean, it doesn't sound like it was written by an American.
But when it's printed in the United States, do they have his original script where they can just give us the original English, or is it translated into Portuguese and then back into English
No,
and
yeah,
completely garbled?
I'm not sure. I mean, they probably would have translated from the French editions instead of
Oh,
going
oh,
to Stan
French,
Drake in.
not Portuguese. You just
Yeah,
told us that.
yeah. Instead of going to Stan Drake directly for the script he gave Leonard Starr.
Well, my
Yeah.
understanding is that French is the words are oftentimes in a different order. So in English, you would say, "I go to the store," but in French, you would say to the store I went. So
No, they would say something like that. The thing is, Latin languages have a lot of words with you can have a lot of words for this with the same meaning. So they would go. So there's a lot of attempts at doing flowery dialogue, which an American wouldn't do, but you would expect to find it in a French comic.
okay.
And Portuguese being a Latin language, you can do a direct translation of the French flowery dialogue. But if it came out in English, an American would not write like this.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't seem natural in some parts.
So is that kind of like something that was meant they were hoping to have in newspapers? Is it somewhat clean or is it a little risque?
It's a little risque. I mean, they could have pushed the envelope a lot more if they wanted to, but they didn't. But you can tell from the cover that it is a little risque. But
Yeah, I was
this would
thinking
not
it'd be
have
a
come out.
little like Barbarella, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe not that far.
yeah, it doesn't get there. I mean, I suppose that they were finally doing in a comic what they didn't have license to do in Apartment 3G.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah. Um,
I mean, like Secret Agent Corrigan, it's a lot cleaner.
mhm.
This one has four dailies inside in album format, and it's part of a collection where they just reprinted newspaper strips. So you have Mandrake, you have Garth, which was a British newspaper strip, Rip Kirby, Flash Gordon, Johnny Hazard, Rick Bradford.
Yeah.
Johnny Hazard was actually pretty good. I mean, that's where you find out that Frank Robbins was a good artist.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because growing up, we had all the collections of Garfield and the format that the strip would come in, but we never seemed to get those for like a lot of the more serious ones. quote serious ones. We'd get Beetle Bailey or whatever, but Rip Kirby or Brenda Starr or
it's easier to do stuff like this in Europe because while this did come out in newspapers, there were always this type of magazines where you have a complete storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So we are used to reading the entire storyline, and so if you want to do a collection, it's also probably easier for us to get the material together. I mean, these are reprinted from magazines which came out in the 70s, but these are 90s stuff, the 90s magazines.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of. We're trying to think where these books are. They might be upstairs, but in the 70s when they had this nostalgia boom, they were putting out in these. I think it was called. It was a company called Nostalgia Press. That's the dog chasing the cat. If you're wondering what the noise is, it's. Let me see. We moved 2 years ago, so everything's at a different place than where it was for decades. So trying to see here where that stuff must be upstairs. Let's see. Um, so these books were part of that nostalgia boom. These books from Bonanza Press. This was Superman from the 30s to the 70s, and a lot of the stories here are printed in black and white. There's a little bit of color, and you can even see. Let me move this. There's like one color story, but it's mostly black and white. And this is probably from very early 70s. I'd think about 72, I'm guessing. Okay, so then part of this series, then you have this one, Batman from the 30s to the 70s, same publisher. And this one is pretty much all black and white. There's a more recent section. They have a little bit of Neil Adams and color in it. There's a Captain Marvel one that I don't have that's pretty valuable. This one's interesting because it's got this little thing. And here's your review copy of Wonder Woman, introduction by Gloria Steinem, interpretive essay by Dr. Phyllis Chesler. The price is $12.95. Publication date is December 7th, 1972. Maybe we have 2 copies of your review, one for our files, one for the author, and it's Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston. So that reviewer, decades later, just sold it. The Wonder Woman, though, is all color. It's all color, and it's really nice looking. And this isn't from the same company, but it's from the same time period. But this Tarzan book is not reprinted. It's Bern Hogarth, and it's totally new. So in a way, it's kind of like maybe one of the first graphic novels that's actually meant for a book form. Oh, look at this. It's got an imprint here from Library of MHP, Michael H. Price. He wrote comic books. He wrote a comic called The Prowler. He was someone I knew, and he worked for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He was a movie critic, and I guess he was reviewing books too. And he was a fixture in Fort Worth, and he had a band like our Crumbs, jug band that played 1930s music, and he was a friend, but he was kind of speaking in past tense, he's still around. He was, and maybe he's watching this, but he was a little bit insufferable. He was just kind of a blowhard. He'd review some new Meryl Streep movie and compare it to, the cinematography of this film is reminiscent of Russ Meyer and Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, because he'd want to make references to these cult movies in his reviews of mainstream stuff. It struck you as just insane. But I don't know that he wrote a comic called The Prowler. I never read it. But this is the origin story of Tarzan, and he's you know before he learned to wear a loincloth, so it's lot of nudity, just male buttocks, but it's beautiful artwork. I mean, it's almost like illustrations from the Bible or something, but it's Tarzan. This is a great book. But I guess Michael H. Price wanted it out of his library. Um, so 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 I'd go to half price books, and a lot of times I'd find stuff that he was discarding from his collection. But the one that I think is one of the greatest things ever is this book, Comics: A History of Comic Books in America. And it's by Les Daniels, who later wrote these big giant books about Marvel and DC. But the graphics are done by this underground artist called Mad Peck. So he does this. This is his interpretation of what Golden Age comics were. And it's all through it, just the way he lays everything out. It's just insane. But it's all the history of comics. It goes through everything. It's very literate. It gives you the entire comics code. And it reprints EC stories. It reprints early Fantastic Four. Um, Somewhere in here, yeah, it's the entire text of the comics code and stuff from Creepy and Eerie. He gives a whole chapter to Warren and to Marvel, and but the thing is, in the back, he has a whole chapter on underground comics, and I'm looking at this as a sixth grader. He starts with Tijuana Bibles, and and this was in my junior high school library, and I would check it out all the time. And then after a while, it just disappeared because they must have realized they were checking this book out to seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade students, and it's reprints some extreme stuff. Um, but it's really good, this book here.
So I think that we're in luck because companies like Tashin, who are doing not only these books about the comics, but they're starting to reprint like deluxe editions of, say, Captain America or Spider-Man or whatever,
Right.
have started to pick up on that. And at the same time, we're getting these Penguin Press collections that are another way that these books are getting into what's left of the bookstores, or on places like Amazon, where if, say, you've got a seventh grader who saw a Spider-Man movie and you're interested in, trying to get them, or if they're interested in checking out the comics, something like this is certainly more accessible than any of the original issues.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to convert a kid into this stuff if, a cool dad or a grandfather can, if it's the right kid, but most kids you can't convert them, but some you can. But I don't think it's enough to save the industry. I don't think.
Yeah,
I think it's a dead industry, personally.
and the kids might not respond very well to what be considered dated art. I remember, so I'm 44 now. I'm very history minded, but the first time I saw those comics from the 60s was when I was 8, because the Brazilian publisher did sort of their own versions of Origins of Marvel Comics and Son of Origins, and because two of their magazines were reaching number 100, and they decided to do the origin story plus a new story, and I was not that impressed with 1963 Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko at the age of 8. So, and that was in the 80s. So now we're in the 2020s, and we're even further apart. I've heard of kids who can't deal with the artwork from the 80s and 90s. So can you imagine what
I
they think
can't
of
deal with the
the ones from
artwork.
the 70s?
I prefer the see my older brothers. They were 10 years older than me, so they probably were 8. But in 1963, when that's they could have been buying those priceless books, but they didn't like it. They didn't like Marvel. They were buying DC because I think DC the people look more like human beings and less like whatever. Jack Kirby looked around and saw these people with square fingertips and everything. But I think that yeah, kids and if Kirby's inked just right, people can bring humanity to it. But he's my brother said he hated Marvel. I could only assume that's because he didn't like Kirby's art. Because what else is there to? I love it, but it's kind of I guess it's an acquired taste. Yeah, it can be hard for people to at
Mhm.
first.
Yeah,
Get.
even the DC artwork might not be as interesting as the in the 60s as the Marvel ones. I mean, you've heard my opinion of Kurt Swan.
Yeah, I like Kurt Swan, but you know who's great is Kurt Schaffenberger. I
Actually,
mean,
I
in
do
the
like
Lois Lane
Schaffenberger.
comics, because
Yeah.
he what I like is when an artist isn't total realistic. But they bring a sense of whimsy to it, where it's
Mhm.
like C.C. Beck would do with Captain Marvel, and Ramona Fradon would do. With there's a whole book about her here. There's the artists that are like that. Richard Corbin's kind of like that. He's another. Oh, one of my favorite artists, Marie Severin. When I first was exposed to her artwork in Not Brand Echh as a little kid, when they reprinted it in a comic called Crazy, it's just her artwork's great, and she's right there from through. She was the colorist for EC as a young lady, and oh, here's some of her original artwork for Not Brand Echh, where Batman meets Spider-Man. It's just I've always liked her artwork, and yeah, that's what she looked like when she was working for EC. She looked like that. She wasn't like she wasn't dumpy. She was man. I just wish. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, there's Resever in the middle there. Yeah, it's I just it's amazing what's coming out now, though. As far as oh, here's another one of those bonanza books that I was trying to find. Is like a book like this. Um, Reprints comics that most people don't remember now, bringing up Father, but in when this came out in say 1972 as a coffee table book, it still would have been in the memory of 73. It looks like still would have been in the memory of people that were in their 50s, maybe. But it reprints a lot of the old newspaper strips from 1938, 38 to 40. Yeah, that's just like 35 years ago. That's like reprinting 1990s Spawn stuff or Venom or some to us now. But now this is impossibly old. 1938, we're talking, it's at what, 80 years old,
Yeah.
because a lot of time has passed since the 1970s, which I try to refuse to acknowledge. This was the this was like billed as a really big important thing with
Oh yeah.
when it came out. I remember buying this at Lone Star Comics. It was a tiny store about the size of this room when it first opened. But I guess this is the last collaboration, if that's what you want to call it, between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Am I wrong? Paulo, you're the expert.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but you know what? These books really, I know that it's filled with a lot of bullshit, but it's a very beautiful book, to get as a Christmas present as a fourth grader. And the artwork is just colored so beautifully. And you get, they would give you first appearance, for those, I mean, all of you have this book, but I'm just for anyone that might be new to it, they give you the first appearance of Thor, and then they give you a more current appearance of Thor, even though the more current one's still about uh, maybe 7 years old. But and you know, I'm reading this as a kid, and it's just really cool that, you know, just Thor in a malt shop, and girls are all crazy about him because he's got hair longer than the Beatles and stuff. That's I just really think that this is definitely post Batman TV series issue of Fantastic Four with all the gigantic sound effects. They amped that up, but this is combined with the first appearance. You know, says they're giving you a contrast. This is how it started and how it is now. Even though this is just the greatest. And then, you know, there were all the sequels to. You guys all know all that.
Yeah. I do think, going back to what you were saying about the kids, I think it has to be the right kid in the right context. I have a number of friends who are big into movies or music, and are definitely, you know, exposing their children to the movies, music, or television or books of their youth. But it has to be done in a way that's organic. And yeah, we're never going to go back to like a mass amount of fourth graders reading, you know, X-Men or whatever.
But the kids don't know these as much from the movies as they do from video games. Because video games, they are the character, and that's what I'm seeing is that they know all these characters. Just a bunch of kids, they'll get together and they're talking about all these obscure characters, and they know their powers, but they don't know the comics. They don't even probably even know that comic books exist. They're and these kids today, they're used to a 3D rendered world. Like you're saying, the artwork's old because it's flat to them. Video games are, you know, rounded and real, and the cartoons today are all these, you know, stuff. The descendants of Pixar, where everything's rounded and real. There's no cell animation that I ever see anymore. And so when they see Bambi, they just like, eh. They like to see things that are rounded and fleshed out, like Inside Out 2 or whatever.
Last year I took my cousin and their kids, and they're 7, and one of them likes to draw, but she looked at at the Garfield exhibit, black and white art, and he said, "This is incomplete." Because they're supposed to color it if it's black and white.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, those books were ridiculously expensive, but really the first, okay, so I guess the Jules Pfeiffer Comic Book Heroes in 65 was first, but then, you know, in the 60s and 70s, paperback racks were everywhere in every store. And then stuff like this came out. You know, like it looks like any other paperback on the stands. It's got a Frank Frazetta cover, but inside it's got, I only have one hand, man.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, because
it reprints the sideways like they would do with the old, you know, they would do with these Mad paper. These were everywhere. Dennis the Menace newspaper strips were reprinted everywhere. BC. Every comic strip was a big thing, but they did Marvel ones. Where the heck are they?
I also remember that era had coloring books where you would give kids a coloring book of like Spider-Man or whatever, and so they could color, so they would get used to seeing those characters in that context.
Right. Well, let me see here. There's okay, when Batman was on the air on TV, they had, this is a reprint from probably about the time that the Tim Burton movie came out, but it's an exact reprint of how they didn't do the comic sideways. They did it that they repositioned the panels. And man. Anyway, there was a Fantastic Four one that's here somewhere, and then they had a Thor one and all that. Of course, then they, in the mid '70s, they were doing these. This is an actual. It's not the comics. It's an actual novel. They were trying to, make it like a pulp,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Ron Goulart. So I got a bunch of those. This was a big part of my childhood. Is Don Martin. Um, so I don't know where that stuff is, man. It's just I miss those days. But then the thing about today is you get books like this that are coming out, and I don't know how many people are even aware of this, but stuff like this is coming out. It's just
Yeah.
like, what the hell? I don't know how many people bought this, but I don't know why everyone in the world doesn't buy this. This is so beautiful from uh, who puts
Fantagraphics.
this out, Paulo, again?
It's
It's Fantagraphic.
Fantagraph,
Yeah. Mhm.
Fantagraphics in
Yeah.
association with Marvel, but trust me, I don't know. You work for Marvel, right? Is that
What?
correct?
No. No,
Not
no, no.
you,
That was
Paulo.
Will. No, Will. That
Oh,
was Wilson. Who was?
for whom this
It's
show is actually
yeah.
this is a
yeah,
bootleg episode of his
Yeah,
series.
Jared.
yeah,
Yep.
Jared,
yeah.
okay,
Jared,
right. I'm
Jared
so
Ward. Yeah.
sorry. I was talking to Jared. I don't know. This is well, they don't have the original artwork for this. They've shot this from comics, but they've cleaned it up quite a bit. It's just this book smells magnificent, and I never thought I'd be able to read all these. They were in the Marvel reprint horror comics in the early '70s. They would have, or maybe they were books that had like a news story, and in the back they'd have a Venus story, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, but now you've got a whole book of them. And there's one that's out that I have on hold at a comic store. I'm friends with the owner. He's probably watching now, called In the Days of Rockets, that reprints the Atlas early Marvel science fiction. But this is one of the pre-code horror. They're calling it Atlas Comics
Yep.
Library #1. And yeah, it's just great stuff. That
Yeah.
I never dreamed that would happen, but
So one
comes
thing I
out
start.
just in time for me to have a few years to read it, then I'll just be in a coffin. And then I don't know what's going to happen to these books, man.
Yeah. A few years ago, Corey Settlemeyer tried to do reprints of the '50s stuff, and they sold horribly because
Yeah.
and he especially mentioned the Venus because they wanted to do two Venus collections. The first one reprinted the first 9 books, which are the ones who are still kind of romance stories. And but he was sure that the Everett volume would sell better, but because the first one sold horribly, they didn't put out the second one.
Yeah.
My
Well,
my
people
my
want
opinion
Venom.
is they usually roll them out incorrectly. That they need
Mhm.
to get people ready by, they put out for that line. They put out the free comic book day like sampler, so that
Mhm.
potential readers who are like on the fence and don't know about them could get a sample of them. And to me, you need to have a book like this that kind of highlights or explains or gives context for a lot of this stuff. And then people who read this and are like, oh, I'd like to go check out that Venus book or whatever,
Yeah.
are more likely to be interested in it.
Here's a great series of books. I won't show the interior of it, Paula. Don't worry. It's reproductions of Tijuana Bibles,
Uh-huh.
and inside you'll find out why Popeye's sweating. But it's yeah, I can't show any of
You
that
ran
at
out of
all.
spinach, right?
There were these 8-page little comics that were distributed and probably under the counter, or I don't know how they were distributed in the 1930s, but they were everything from every comic character you could imagine, and then some were about celebrities, but
Mhm.
they were all they were not nice. They were called Tijuana Bibles because people thought they were printed in Mexico. I don't really. I got all kinds of comic book oriented stuff here. Um, and
We'll see.
but let's see. Yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's there's just so much coming out now. I'll never be able to buy it all.
Yeah,
So
that's
there,
exactly the problem.
yeah, it's. But luckily, the great thing is Marvel and DC have helped by making really shitty comic books now, so I don't have to worry about buying anything new. But what I do buy every time I talk to my friend that runs Gotham City Comics in Mesa, I say, "Are there any facsimiles coming out like that police comics you showed? That's a book I bought immediately." And the facsimiles I love, except now they're doing facsimiles of books from like 10, 15 years ago. I want facsimiles of stuff that I would never be able to get. I don't want a facsimile of Crisis on Infinite Earths or something that's, to me, that's brand new.
How about
There's another.
military comics? I got this one.
Yeah,
First
I got
appearance of
that
Black
too. Of
Hawk.
course,
But
I
they're
bought.
they're they're
Yeah,
smartly also doing the Spider-Man with the black costume, because those books are,
yeah,
30, 35, 40 years old at this point.
I know, but I still think they're brand new books because to me, I don't know where all the years have passed, but I guess I've had a whole career and retired since I was in college when that book came out. And I remember just thinking, a black suit on Spider-Man, ugh, I don't want to buy that. I do have the issue of Spider-Man where he's swinging across New York wearing that suit, and it looks like Amazing Fantasy 15. I think that's supposed to. I don't
Hmm.
know why they say that's the first appearance, and then they say the Super Marvel Secret Wars is the
Yeah.
first appearance, and then they say that Marvel Age has the first appearance. I don't know what's the first appearance,
Well,
but
that ridiculous search for the first appearance, so they can sell it for stupid prices. I mean, it's
yeah,
ridiculous. Like when they found out that Hellboy had appeared in some comics festival program in Italy, and now everybody wanted to import the Italian program into the United States.
well, technically, then oh, really, the first appearance of Wolverine is in this issue of Daredevil, and a little half-page ad for the comic. It's like shit.
You were showing
I,
the Atlas stuff, or the
yeah,
those reprints. This is the free comic book day one
yeah,
that
that's
they did.
great. Yeah, I got that.
And this, like I said, this is great to get it in people's hands so that they can have an opportunity to see what it is before they
Right.
spend $50, $60 on a big hardcover.
Right, absolutely. You're right. That is a really good book that came out a few months ago. Man. Yeah, I don't know. I I just like the old stuff. What's good coming out now? Besides there's these Geiger books that I have bought a bunch of them, but I haven't read them yet. But I've got them waiting until I get like a collection together, and then I'm just gonna hit it all.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
And
there's a new Johnny Quest series,
everyone's
Transformer.
talking good about that. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a new Flash Gordon series as well. They're going to do a Defenders of the Earth comic as a spin-off of that.
yeah,
Matt Wagner's back with Grendel. The current Grendel miniseries is very good.
yeah. You were telling me
Uh,
about that. Yeah.
so. Before
and
you came on, I was showing these from this past week,
mhm.
Prairie Gods, which is a kind of fun horror book.
I don't know that one.
Girl called Cthulhu, which
Oh,
I really like this first issue. And then this is the first issue of Rockabilly Vampiro Apocalypse. These were all like fun horror adjacent, kind of cool pop art stuff.
yeah.
That it's
Yeah, the only issue of Gun Honey I have, I got, yeah, because it people tell me it's great. It's just I don't have any comic store near me. But
I
I saw the one that had that Captain America pastiche of the first issue of so that's amazing. So I got that sent to me.
so
Um,
I like the Gun Honey stuff because I like Charles Ardai, who is the publisher of Hard Case Crime. So this is what the interior of Prairie Gods looks like, if
oh,
anybody's interested. So there's the back cover.
I remember a few years ago, everyone was talking about Stray Dogs, and they were so excited because there was going to be an animated series. But I don't think that animated series went anywhere.
Yeah.
But it looked like a cool comic. I picked up a collection of it. I haven't read it yet. I because I get up, I go to work at 6:30 in the morning, and I come home. I just got home right before I came on, and I fall asleep. Sometimes I fall asleep during live streams, and people don't know because I have someone else on the screen, and then I wake up. It's like, oh, I'm doing a live stream. One time I fell asleep on the air, and the camera cut back to me because someone dropped off the stream, and they cut back to me sleeping. That is, yeah, man. Well, maybe the economy will improve. I won't have to do two jobs, but oh well, who
Well,
knows?
and now for something completely different, European comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So this is called Frank Cappa. It's is a roving reporter, war correspondent. This came out in the 80s inside a Spanish magazine called CIMOC, which kind of resembled both heavy metal and Epic Illustrated.
Yeah.
So it was a bit more tame than heavy metal, but it had some hardcore stuff. And these stories are black and white. So this one has 3 short stories reprinted in album format, and it's black and white, and they cut off people's heads.
Huh.
That we can show on YouTube, but not titties. And the action is made. The action is supposed to shock you, but not in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of way. More like the rest of the story is kind of subdued, and it's very inspired by Corto Maltese. In fact, these panels here look like they were lifted from some Hugo Pratt drawings, because you have the contemplative characters being shown sideways. But this series was pretty good. It's just not very well known because Manfred Sommer did not do much stuff beyond this. Even the French didn't care that much about the series. It never appeared in the Italian magazines, and it's kind of forgotten. Although about almost 20 years ago, they put out a 400-page volume with all the Frank Cappa stories, but it also got bad distribution. They're not going to reprint it. But I do like the painted cover. It's the only chance to see a black and white character in color.
Okay. Is it like ultra violent? What happens in that?
No, it's not ultraviolent. So it's a war correspondent, but it's more about men. The main character is kind of is contemplating man's inhumanity to man, but he just thinks it's normal now. So whenever there's violence, it just happens, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Huh. So he's like a combination of Enemy Ace, Silver Surfer, and someone from Apocalypse Now or something.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds good.
Yeah, because the story that opens up here is it's called The Last African, and Frank is in some country in the middle of Africa, and he gets accidentally kidnapped by this native who wants to go back to his village. He had been conscripted by the army, and Frank goes along with him, and Frank tries to explain to him about the modern world and the needs of the governments to bring peace. And okay, show me and when there's a point when it's show me the world, and he draws the planet. Your world is so small; it's smaller than my village. And when he's in the village, he dresses up like a native and takes off his military uniform, and he says, "My magic will kill you." And then the other soldiers just shoot him for being a deserter, and that's Frank Cappa's in the middle of it, just watching, because he's a reporter.
Was this a comic strip in newspapers?
No, it appeared in a magazine. Then it would appear. It would get reprinted in albums, on the European style format.
Do you think that the last name Kappa is a reference to Robert Capa, the war photographer?
Yeah, definitely.
But they make it so much like Frank Capra, the film movie
Yeah.
director. It's just
Yeah,
like
it's
come
supposed.
up with something better than that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's supposed to. Some European some European authors not be were not above doing that sort of mental connection just to get the reader's attention
Yeah,
when coming up
really,
with the.
a war journalist should have many pages just showing him drinking and smoking.
Well, there are some
That's
here.
Hanging out with
are there
soldiers, learning how to swear.
Mhm. Oh, but yeah, here is drinking and smoking here.
yeah, yeah.
There
Okay.
you go.
Hmm. They should have him posing in front of like a fake screen behind him. We're in a very dangerous position here, like the CNN guys during the Gulf War that had blue screens behind them to look like. Then the camera would shut off. They'd start laughing. I don't know.
So this idea about the stray dogs being a shield platform for variants, I feel like if something is written with the intent of being a comic, and I was just showing the Girl Called Cthulhu. There's multiple variant covers for this.
Yeah.
However, this is this is I think the third miniseries with this character, which is very much in the tradition of the pulp detective adventure occult kind of comics. So as a comic itself, it feels, first of all, it's a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun, but this I don't feel like this book or books like Gun Honey are designed to sell the variant covers, although people will buy them. I think they're designed to be fun adventure escapism, which is what something like this should be, and what like the hard case crime stuff really is. Like, this is Max Allen Collins is his riff on the Parker books being reprinted by Hard Case Crime. So I do agree that some of those are definitely something like Stray Dogs. I don't know if the story or if the comic itself holds up, but something like this, definitely, I think that the
I,
actual material holds up.
I think that's just part of the industry. I'm the most cynical guy there is about everything, but Stray Dogs, people were talking that I respected were talking about it. I looked at the comic and I thought, this is very well drawn. This is like not unlike most modern comics. This it's and the idea behind the story that sounds interesting. So I picked up a collection. I and for me to do that with a modern comic, I still haven't read it because I don't have time to do shit. But it's it didn't. I realize there are a lot of variant covers, but every comic has that. I think that's a terrible thing, and I think that's making comic book collecting in the future an impossible task for people in the future. I don't know how you would even go through bins and figure out what's what when there's 30 different covers for a comic. There should be there should be one cover for that issue, and there should only be one Amazing Spider-Man number 38. You shouldn't scroll through 4 pages on mycomicshop.com of Amazing Spider-Man 38, because every time they revised Spider-Man and got to issue 38, they had 40 different covers. And it's insane. That's why I try to not even acknowledge that modern comics or that world even exist, because to me it's just depressing that it's destroyed a hobby. These young people come in that are in their 20s and 30s, and they think, well, it might be fun to collect comics, and then they say, well, I'll watch YouTube and someone will tell me how to collect comics, and then they say, well, buy these books and slab them, and then they do that, and then it's just
Yeah.
and it's that's the way it is, and those channels get ridiculous amounts of views, and they don't that's what comic book collecting is going to be, because as the older generation flies off to heaven, that's going to be the people collecting, and everything's going to be in plastic. And I don't know, man. I just try to enjoy my old stuff and these reprints that are coming out of, but I'm not thinking there can't be anything good new every week when my friend that runs the comic store gets new books and I said, "Is there anything good that's new?" And he says, "No, it's pretty much all shit."
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
I
publishers
want there
are
to be good stuff.
yeah the publishers are being short-sighted and kind of lazy. And I realize that editorial budgets have been slashed a lot, which is why they have to hire Tumblr artists to do to do the books. But then again, the the branding is terrible. The trying to do 20 books with the same characters or with a semi-related group of characters just dilutes the brand. And if the brand isn't strong, nobody will feel compelled to pick it up. If there are all these books around, then none of the flavors are special. This isn't Comics are
Yeah.
not Baskin Robbins. You can't choose the pistachio flavored ice cream.
Well,
And
as Jared says, he finds stuff every week, and I definitely do as well. And that's why stuff like this that we get a mini series every year or whatever.
yeah,
From
my friend
But
showed.
it
one,
gets to the point that the the reader has to become very well informed
yeah,
to try to find something good, and that the none of the publishers are helping.
Yeah. Well, my friend showed me that Cthulhu book and the cover looked good. And then I'm nowhere near Mesa, Arizona, but on a live stream, he showed me the inside and I think it was that book. And it's like, oh, well, the artwork inside, it looks like it was done by a 14-year-old just starting high school. And, and so but maybe I didn't judge, maybe it gets better, or maybe I just saw one page.
so to
I
me,
don't,
this feels like it's more trying to be very like, because this is set in the teens and the 20s. This is
uh,
trying to be more reflective of the commercial art of that era, which I definitely appreciate.
Okay, well, maybe I didn't. I just saw a bad page.
Well, and it might have also been because there's a couple of Cthulhu things, so it might have been something different.
No,
But
it was definitely that comic,
oh,
but
okay,
I don't know. I think that's what happened. I could go back and see, but anyway, I kind of don't want to like new things. I want to like new things. I want good stuff to come out, but on the other hand, I don't want new stuff to come out that I want because I don't have the money for
yeah,
it. So I
I
kind of want
understand that.
everything to be shitty, so I can just say, oh, I don't need that anyway, because kind of have to eat, and the wife has to eat, and the cat and dog have to eat. And
Well,
it's tough, man.
I mean, it's not for everyone. That's for sure. But I'm just for me, it's like I see something that is different from what I'm
Yeah,
going to see from Marvel or DC or Archie,
yeah,
whoever else is out there.
yeah. Oh yeah,
And I think one of the things with the artists that we don't necessarily talk about is I think one of the reasons we see so many artists from Canada and outside the United States is they live in places that they can get health care without paying through the nose for it. Where in the United
um,
States, if you're not getting health care through your job, I mean it's a major investment. So
yeah,
when we
yeah.
see someone from South America or Europe or Canada, they don't have that concern about I need to make 600 a month to just pay for the health care or whatever.
So
It's
what you're
not
telling me is that comic books pay very poorly
oh
doing
yeah,
art for. Okay,
comparatively, yeah, I'm sure.
so the artists back when I was a kid were paid better,
Yeah, I
because they
think
were selling more.
I think the current page rate is about a quarter of what it was in the 80s, and that's not adjusted for inflation.
Okay,
I think
so
also that the ability to like purchase a house and groceries and transportation and healthcare was those dollars went a lot farther in the 80s and the 70s than they do now, for
Yeah.
sure.
Now you
well,
have some comic book artists crowdfunding for sandwiches.
Yeah.
well, in the Silver Age, those artists were on staff. Did they have insurance, Marvel and DC, National?
That I don't know, because I don't know what things were like then. I
I mean,
think,
some guys, they were there for their whole career.
yeah.
John Buscema, that's Marie Severin. I mean, I assume they were taken care of, but then comics were selling millions of
Oh, yeah.
copies, and maybe they were making more money. They did have a whole lot of artists from the Philippines and all these Spanish surnames that were coming in the early '70s that were amazing. Oh, that's another artist I love is Ernie Chan, Chua, however he went by two names. I thought he was fantastic. I never thought about all that. That if they're paying that crummy and yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to have a job that has health care. Um, the government doing health care, then you wait 6 months and you may not be alive when they finally get around to
Oh
you,
no,
but
oh no, why?
they pay.
I can go to the doctor in under 48 hours.
Yeah, my
Can
my
we?
my friends in Sweden, Norway, Finland, they're all, oh yeah, it's not a big problem now. They're like, I gotta
And
go to Poland
and
to a
unless
dentist, but
you unless you need a very specific surgery, well, 20 years ago there were waiting lists of up to 6 or 9 months, but nowadays it's pretty much taken care of. You can set up a surgery in the next 30 days,
yeah,
and
and
it's not even stuff that and it's stuff that's being found on
Yeah.
time. So
well, and
you
anecdotally
you don't
here, I
die.
know, I have family members who needed, what wound up being like minor surgery that they do every day of the week, and
Mhm.
they were told 6 months. So, I
Are you
mean,
in the United States?
oh yeah, yeah, I'm in Michigan,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
so
mean,
And
it's
here's
it's effed
once
up.
upon a time, the
I
wait lists were definitely an issue, but in from what I've seen, and once again, this is just anecdotally, um, you know, the speed of getting access to that healthcare and your insurance covering it isn't what it was 20, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah. Let's just say that
uh,
here you don't have to die of cancer in the next 6 months or 6 years.
Yeah.
Our cancer treatments are, in the public health service healthcare systems are actually very good.
well, it'd be nice if they didn't poison our food.
Yes.
Like
That
the
too,
stuff
yeah,
in
yeah.
our food is illegal where you're at. So if the food wasn't poisoned,
Mhm.
then maybe it wouldn't be that much of a concern. I just know that I don't see any solution being offered by either side in the United States that see because I know, punishing people for not having health insurance,
Mhm.
and we got punished for having it because
Yeah.
I have health insurance. I'm retired, and my wife has health insurance, and she filled out our taxes, and then it's like, oh, we aren't getting any money back. We have to pay $1,300. What? And then it turns out it says the reason you're paying $1,300 is neither of you have health insurance. So we're and it's like, but there, she said when I filled it out, it never asked on some online stupid
Mhm.
program she was doing. It never asked me that question. And so, then you try calling IRS and you wait for an hour and a half and then click, they hang up on you over and over again. And
Yeah.
finally, once tax season was over, I call up and says, well, of course you should get that money back, but with interest, because we've had your money,
Mhm.
but you got to fill out your taxes all again. And we still haven't. So we've been suffering horribly because that $1,300 should have, we were like eating like
Yeah. The
beans because they took our money, and that's happening to people that don't have health insurance. They're being punished by this Obamacare. It's like you don't have it, so you're gonna have to pay.
Yeah.
My
Well,
The
that's
God.
the the only problem we have is dentists with
yeah.
dentists because
Yeah.
we don't have
Well,
enough
you just get all your
dentists in
teeth
the
pulled and get dentures, and it's
yeah,
fine.
but almost. The thing is, you used to be able to. Everyone used to be able to afford going to the dentist here. All of a sudden, all of the dentists signed agreements with the insurance companies, and because of that, they all jack the
Yeah.
prices because you're supposed to go through the insurance, and they won't let you pay in the moment.
Yeah. My
So
friends in Sweden all are talking about going to Poland for their dental care.
mm,
It's
yeah,
cheaper. And it's like
It's
like
fucked up everywhere, isn't it?
it's like driving, 6 hours or whatever. They can fly there. But back to the point of that to me is the reason we have so many comic book artists that are from overseas, is because that's, in the United States, the rates aren't paying enough for people. And that's probably, frankly, why, some of the art quality is declined, because you get artists that need to, they're getting paid per page. So,
well, they're just
there's not
drawing it on
much more.
computer screens. There aren't artists that are classically trained to actually draw on board. And you're getting generations of comic artists that really don't know comics, and I don't know, the classic artists, Kirby and all the guys from the 40s, 50s, 60s. They were, as children, weaned on Hal Foster and Alex Raymond and the Sunday Funnies, and that's what they really aspired to be. But they were not maybe quite good enough, so they were doing comic books. But some of them could have made it in that field. But I don't know.
You got to wonder how many of them were held back by editors that didn't want anything that was going to be the next step evolution of the form.
Yeah, well, that definitely happened to Kirby at DC in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hated what he was doing with Green Arrow.
Yeah.
And they couldn't wait to steal the Challengers of the Unknown from him, so he would stop doing the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
On the other hand, these guys did crazy stuff, and they took care of their healthcare problems by transferring their bodies to their minds to android bodies. So this is Exterminator 17.
Yeah.
Which I believe was serialized over there in heavy metal.
Probably.
In fact, the founder. It's written by the founder of heavy metal, Jean-Paul Dionnet. The artist is Enki Bilal, very famous in Europe, not as famous in North America, although he kind of deserves to be, because for science fiction, the art is very, very good. When people talk about the heavy metal style, it's this. It's more this than Mobius, actually.
Yeah.
Enki Bilal is the amount of detail.
Is that Humanoids Publishing?
It predates Humanoids. So this came out inside Metal Hurlant in France, and in Humanoids is the rights holder for this graphic novel in particular. Yes. Although you can find a lot of stuff from Enki Bilal on other French publishers. This is kind of Blade Runner in space. And it's a one-shot story. It's not a series. Usually the one-shots, when something is successful, it gets a series. And in 20 years there will be 12 volumes. But Exterminator 17 is a one shot. But there's Enki Bilal has a lot of other series, and yeah, Library 88 likes him. So if you ever see the step, these are not going to be cheap in the US. But if you ever see anything by Enki Bilal, you read it. Yeah, there's a good chance you'll like it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, when I think of heavy metal, I first thought, well, is Mobius, but Richard Corbin, it was an American artist, but because to me, that was what struck me the most in those early issues of heavy metal, is his art, which I guess was one of the only American contributions to that magazine.
Yeah.
Man, he was so amazing. It's unbelievable.
Corbin probably had the most European sensibilities at the time, and because he also wanted to publish his own stuff. Not only that, it's the aesthetics, and using a bigger format and also having finite stories that he would own the rights to, which is what is
Yeah.
normal in the European market.
Yeah.
I think also those guys, Corbin, Frazetta, um, they actually had the ability to do some commercial art as far as like movie posters or stills or
Yeah.
paperback covers, that kind of calendars,
Yeah.
those kinds of things that probably paid a lot more than comics, and probably
Sure.
probably meant that they didn't have to, be like, well, what is DC handing me this month?
Yeah. Yeah, man, I don't know. Um, but it's not just comics. I'm always wanting there to be new music that comes out that interests me. It's like everything I love that I've always loved, movies, comics, music, just is stagnating. And it's like I want the cultural renaissance. I want to have lots of movies coming out at the same time that are great. I want to turn on the radio and hear lots of great new music, and I remember
uh,
times in my life when that was happening, and the comics were great. You couldn't afford to buy all the comics coming out that were great.
there's
um,
good music coming out, but you have to go look for it,
Yeah.
and
yes, I
it's
know, I
even
know.
harder. It's even harder for music than it is for comics, surprisingly.
Well,
Well, I've seen, yeah, go ahead.
in the U.S., we had major consolidation in the business in the late '90s that effectively killed radio. The major labels didn't want to take any chances. MTV stopped playing videos. Um,
Yeah,
what most people
yeah,
don't know is that in addition to buying the radio stations, Clear Channel also bought all the booking agencies around the country. So
Mm.
small bands who would have once upon a time had an opening slot for somebody at a club show, because they weren't part of the Clear Channel system, they never got an opportunity.
right,
So, uh, the business of music has largely impacted what's available and what people hear about. And not only that, but buying up all these radio stations meant that we weren't getting local radio news anymore. So you didn't have a local person saying, hey, this is the weather. There's a traffic jam here. There's a
Hmm.
car accident here. So avoid that. So we weren't, or more importantly, there's severe weather coming or a train derailment that could potentially be deadly. So all of that
right,
stuff, starting with the Telecom Act of 1996, has impacted the culture. Additionally, because of Clear Channel very much having a stranglehold on what we heard, it meant that weird, oddball stuff, or even, where I grew up, we had this local construction project that a local musician did a song about that they used to play on the morning show. It wasn't like it was heavy rotation or anything, but it was local stuff. Somebody being funny about something local. You're not going to get that these days.
Hmm.
And that means that people don't hear anything other than what is being handed to them from a corporate level. Now, I once upon a time I worked for a company that was a sub company of Clear Channel, and there was a radio programmer with the same name as mine, and I would get their emails occasionally.
mhm,
So I would see like this guy in Denver was picking the music for the whole country, rather
yeah,
than somebody local being like, oh, here's a band that's from Detroit or Grand Rapids that will play here in Michigan. Somebody in Denver's going, never heard of them. Let's put in another Backstreet Boys song and wrote, or whatever it was.
yeah,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Here it's not so much about consolidation because the local channels were still locally owned. The main problem is that advertising money dried up at the turn of the century because
mhm.
they all focused on the national news station, on the national radio stations, and local businesses couldn't afford the rates. And if the radios reduced the rates to accommodate the local businesses, they didn't have money to keep the radio on the air. Um, and it was insidious, kind of in the same way. We don't even especially because the people stopped listening to the radio. Uh, and the places have the TV on, but not the commercial places have the TV on, but not the radio. If they have music, there's this. Even 25 years ago, there was this service who would play a playlist for you. It was given to you, and you'd connect there, and they would just be playing that, and it had nothing to do with what was going on on the radio. And there were a lot of there was a lot of engagement with the local population, even at when people were working at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and they'd have you call the show and say the brand name for the soap brand name, and you could win a dinner for two in a local restaurant. Stuff like that, small stuff.
Yeah, well,
but
we used to have a local station that people would listen to on the way to work, and they would once again tell them the weather and traffic, right? Maybe recap the sports, or like the big national news stories from the previous day, and you would listen to that on your way to work because hey, I need to know if there's a traffic jam, or if it's going to rain, or if we're going to have snow, or whatever it is. And then in between that, you would get here's the new song from AC/DC or Guns N' Roses, or Casey and the Sunshine, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we also had enough stations where it would be like, hey, we're the only station in this area playing the new song by Grand Funk Railroad, or whatever it was. And that would cause other stations to then have to counter with, we're the only ones playing the new song by Bon Jovi, or so that's how you would hear a lot more diversity of music. Interestingly, the two types of stations that did not have this happen to them were stations in the minority community, whether that was the Black community, the Hispanic community, if you're in parts of the country, the Asian communities, they kept their stations. They didn't get bought up. And the other one was religious stations, because they have a mission that's beyond just being making money. They want to spread their message. So those places are where you would hear different voices, and you would hear local people talking about local issues. Right. So maybe if you need the traffic for your area, you might tune into one of the minority or a college station that didn't have those commercial concerns.
Well, we've got a station that's very. I'll talk to you, but who owns Clear Channel?
So they became iHeartMedia or iHeartRadio.
Mm-hmm.
Clear Channel grew from Clear Channel into, first of all, Live Nation, which was the big concert conglomerate, and then they changed their name to iHeartRadio, and I guess they've gone bankrupt since then, but they still maintain enough control, and it's been long enough that the radio is no longer what it was when I was a kid in the 80s.
But as you move up and up, who owns Clear Channel?
I don't know who the individuals are that own Clear.
I just don't. I'm becoming more and more convinced. Whenever there's something that annoys me, I look up above it, and I see that some.
Eventually, you'll find a hedge fund.
Yeah,
but eventually, eventually you'll find a hedge fund.
Yeah, and that's where we're going, because the hedge fund's going to come in, and they're going to take it apart and sell off the parts and borrow against the rest of it and bankrupt. So
it was like science fiction, when Ian Fleming wrote about Spectre and all these Get Smart, it's chaos, it's it's Thrush and Man from Uncle, these organizations that really don't belong to any country, and they have malevolent intent and want total power, and he's like, well, that's just like a comic book story. And then you realize, no, they really exist. And I'm just wondering, if you go up high enough, does BlackRock own the Clear Channel? Because they own 10% of Disney and ABC, and it's like these people say, why is Disney sabotaging Star Wars? It's so easy just to make new Star Wars movies. Why do they want to make them intentionally to anger the fans? And it's, well, maybe that's the whole agenda, is to crumble everything, tear down all the statues and just start over. Maybe they just want to complete communist revolution. I mean, it's just because all I see is ugliness. I remember I've never been a big fan of McDonald's, but I remember, oh, it's a very cheery looking place. Now I see McDonald's, they look like black prison blocks. And Jack in the Box, oh, that used to, I remember that used to have a big clown. No more. It's a black prison block. I remember the Holiday Inn neon sign on the highways glowing with all these lights. Now it's a black prison block. And it's everything's ugly. The architecture's ugly. Uh, it's just like people, stupidity is glorified. I hear this Taylor Swift, who's a billionaire, and I listen. Okay, I guess her most famous song is this "Shake It Off" song, and I listen to it, and it kind of gets stuck in your head. It's a terrible song. Okay, well, what is her voice like? I'm trying to think. What's the nearest equivalent? And I think back to the early '80s. I thought the Go-Go's were great. So I'm thinking, okay, this hater's gonna hate. It's well, it's kind of like We Got the Beat, except that was a much why isn't Belinda Carlisle a billionaire? She's far superior. Why isn't Kate Bush? I mean, why this ridiculous because she's controllable? I just I just hate everything. It just all seems awful. I do see some good new musicians on Instagram, but they have fewer people following them than my own Instagram, and they're pretty good musicians. And I follow them, but I don't know how you make money as a musician because you can't sell records. People just get all their music free. So I guess you have to go out and appear in concert to make money.
Yeah.
So there's no real money in that unless you're some sellout that is going to endorse whatever political candidate the the specter over that's or Stavro Blofeld tells you to go out and endorse.
Well,
I
at
don't know.
our in our country music equivalent, uh, musicians are paid by public money to go to especially in the countryside, in the villages and towns in the interior. Uh, there will be the town's big cultural religious celebration, and they will invite a group of musicians which are semi-famous to go play there, and it's all paid with taxpayer money. But it really doesn't matter because all of the taxpayers in that place enjoy it.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of live like that. They have to make enough money to pay for the backing musicians and the gas. Well, the gas is paid for by, but so yeah, they need to try to make about if they're the main singer and they have to pay all the musicians after paying for everything, they have to try and make about 35K during 3 months, so they can then have a normal business the rest of the year, and they create new music during that time,
Mhm.
and then they go play again for 3 months.
Well, you know
So I
what?
have a friend in Sweden who either she does still, I haven't talked to her for a while. She either works for the culture ministry or she used to work for the culture ministry. And one of the things that they do is they would pay half of like the cheapest airfare to America, half of the cheapest car rentals, so that Swedish musicians could come to the United States and tour without without having to go into debt. And that's why we get bands like the Hives having a big career in the US.
I kind of there are some genres, some international genres, which are easier to market across Europe in the metal and electronic
Yeah.
fields. They do better than the pop artists, especially if the pop artists sing in their native language, and so they're kind of stuck in their own country.
Mhm.
But if they make enough money from their music during the summer, they can hold out the rest of the year and have a small business that's their own, and they or where they're the boss, and they can live during those 3 months, and the rest of it they have a normal job.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, the way I remember radio being when I was a kid in the early 70s, when I ride around the cars with my older brothers driving, is it was a mishmash of all these different types of music. At least the station, I know there were some that were
Mhm.
more segregated as a certain style of music, but the stations they'd listen to would have the Carpenters, followed by Diana Ross. So, I mean, there was then Dottie West, some country song. It would just be everything. And but here where I live, it's a town of about 1,500 people, and the county is big, but it's not that many more people. It's just a lot of farmers, and there's a station, that an FM station that's a lot like those 70s stations. It plays the old music from the 70s. It'll play some new music. It's weird, just they'll have the mishmash of music, some country song followed by some early hip hop song, and it's done. I think it's a nonprofit station, but there'll be an ad for some farmers, some little store out in the middle of nowhere. They're having free barbecue in their parking lot on Saturday for their fourth anniversary, and it's like then every morning about 6:30 they'll read all the obituaries for everyone that's died in the county. It's like it's definitely local. Um, so yeah, I'm glad to be away from the city, but I just see that all of this that's happening, that's making everything I love shitty, is a plot, and it sounds conspiratorial. I think it was Last Frontier Comics just made a comment that what I suspected, that the particular organization and another one, they're also buying up all the houses. When the people, they buy up whole neighborhoods, and then they make these houses only rentals, and so that's the way they don't want people owning houses. They don't want us really owning anything. They basically want us, if they had their druthers, it'd be like the Matrix, and we'd be like little batteries being sucked off of.
It would be
I
more like the company towns of the 19 or the 1890s through,
You're in debt to the
early
company
30s.
store. Yeah,
Yep.
basically slavery. It's like technically you're free. You could leave if you want. Well, no, you can't. And just credit card debt is just a type of slavery.
Mhm.
It's just like, yeah, it's all shitty. The Marvel movies were really great for a while, for about 10 years, and then they just turned into total shit. The Star Wars movies, total shit. Everything's shitty, but one thing that I've got confidence in, and all these people on Facebook are saying, it looks terrible. How stupid does this look? Is the James Gunn Superman movie coming out next summer? He shows Crypto a couple of days ago. They released a picture of Superman sitting there on the moon looking at the earth with Crypto by his side, and they're saying this is just so gay. Look at Superman's got red underwear on. These 20-year-old kids that don't know anything, have never read a comic book, they just hate it. I want the dark Superman that Zack Snyder gave us that never smiled. Superman's not supposed to smile. It's like, man, I just man, what's the point of living in a world where people are this stupid? That's the movie I'll see on opening day if I have to drive 50 miles to see it. I think that'll be great because the guy looks like Superman. I see the pictures. He's smiling. He's not depressed. Superman, that first movie that Zack Snyder made, half of that was he beats the bad guys, but you see what's happening is like 100 times worse than 9/11. The whole buildings are collapsing, filled with people, and he's not trying to save them. And then when he gets the last bad guy, doesn't he like twist his head off or something? It's like, what the? I don't know, man. Uh, I don't
All
know,
right.
man.
Do you have a rip reader slab by chance?
I didn't make one, so I forgot to do one.
Okay.
What is that? What is that?
Well,
Oh, like a kill Mary,
yep, it's
Yeah,
the game.
other word.
yeah, but we have some variations. Um, So you remember one time I showed on Micah's channel the cover to the French Aquaman #1, where they replaced Mera with a dolphin. So one of the parts of the Reed, Rip, and Slab is that we replace something on one of the covers with a dolphin.
Yeah. So, for instance, maybe the guitar on this would be a dolphin.
Yeah. Well, Canary frozen?
Am I frozen?
No.
Was I frozen?
You seem to have frozen for a second.
What I was trying to do is read the comments. I have to
Ah,
press the
okay.
button and pull them up. It looks
Oh, yeah,
like I'm sorry if I've turned this into. That's all I think about is how much I hate the world. My wife said, "You're going to go on that damn show and you're going to talk over everybody and fill it with your politics like an asshole." And I said, "No, I don't think I am, but I
Sometimes
can't
it's
stop,
good to
man.
vent.
I'm an idiot." Yeah, no.
Well,
Yeah, but not on someone else's show. My wife points out that's not good manners. That's why I'm hated by so many people. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's a great idea. The original game is what you can't really say it on the air.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
it's fuck Mary Kill. Yeah, but so we
well,
turn
Oh,
it
you're a
to Reed, Rip, or
European, so you just go ahead and say
yeah,
it.
we turn it to Reed, Rip, or Slab. And because of that Aquaman cover with the dolphin, we introduced the dolphin as the variation. Then one day, Jared showed a panel from a comic that it had a nuclear blast, and it had some flamingos just kind of standing there and not paying attention. So we also put where do we put the flamingos like
Here,
okay,
I
so
got a random cover here. Like,
yeah. Okay, on
like
this one, so there's the guy, and we put the flamingos would be standing on the characters' heads or something.
yeah, or they'd be
So,
in the logo.
so fuck is equivalent to read, and Mary's equivalent to ripping it.
It doesn't matter.
Uh,
It has
And
to be
then
three things, and you have three comics. One you read,
all right.
one you rip, one you slab,
So,
and then
because,
okay, so slab
dolphin.
is equivalent to killing it because you're
Yeah,
putting it in a
yeah,
coffin, a plastic
right,
so
coffin.
right.
like I've been showing these all night. So, which one of these do you want to read? Which one of them has the kind of cover that you would want to look at as a poster? That would be the slab.
Wouldn't it
And
be
which
like,
one would has no interest for you, so you might want to rip it?
okay, fuck implies you just want a one night stand. Marry implies you want to be
Yeah.
with the rest of your life, and then kill. So wouldn't it be more read? It's just I want to read it, then I'll just give it to my little brother. It's
Mhm.
not something I want to cherish the rest of my life, in a long box. So wouldn't it be read is
Read is
fuck?
Mary. No,
But Mary would be cherish the rest of your life. You read it multiple, you keep,
Yeah.
read. Okay, read, keep,
no. The
slab.
read, rip.
Yeah. Read.
But
So
but there's no rip. Rip is that the equivalent of fuck?
no, rip would be the equivalent of kill.
But I think slab is the equivalent of or is slab a
So
compliment? Because to me,
slab
slabbing
is
a book is destroying it. It's no longer
yeah,
a book.
but the thing with the slab book is you're just looking at the cover.
Mhm.
So think of it
So
more.
slab is like fuck.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
you don't really love it. It's just an
Mhm.
object. You're
Yeah.
objectifying it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so slab is fuck. And I'm overthinking it, man. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, it's which one of these do you want to read? Which one of these has a cover that you just want to look at, and which one do you just want to rip?
Can you embiggen him, please, Paula?
Yes.
See if I
Okay.
can-
Which one would I?
Which
Okay,
one?
explain it to me again. This is too
So which one of
complicated.
these do you, from just based on the covers, which one of these do you think you would want to read? Or if it's based on who the artist was, or who the writer was, or who the publisher was.
Yeah, well, I know that modern comics are like gold key comics from my childhood, and that they have beautiful covers, and the interior looks like they were drawn by
Yeah.
16-year-olds. Usually, not Gold Key was not always like that, but you know what I mean. The one that's the best cover is the Cthulhu one.
Okay, so that would maybe be the one you slab.
the one that's the rockabilly vampire one. I mean, I love rockabilly music. I love vampires, but it strikes me of that kind of overly cute, kind of like Abraham Lincoln, Zombie Buster. You know, oh, isn't that clever? Martin Luther King.
Okay, so you're not impressed. You can
Bigfoot
rip it.
fighter.
Yeah, and then
I like the one on the Cthulhu one.
Yeah.
That's a good pinup piece of art. What is the other one? Prairie Gods.
Prairie
I I
Gods. Yep.
I can't get a sense of what that art really looks like. I don't know. That's a Western, I assume.
Yeah, it's kind of a Western horror book.
That could be
I have not
good.
read this issue yet. The first issue I read was very much, you know,
I
cool
can't play
chase
the
in the
game
desert.
without seeing the inside of the book. I'm sorry to talk over you.
But
Here's the back. You know,
Yeah,
this
I
is
have
kind
to
of what
see the interior.
the interior art looks like. It's stylized for sure.
Well, most modern comics don't have any words in them. This at least has something you can read.
Like
I
here's
like that it has white borders because a lot of comics have the black go right to the edge. Okay, let me see
like
this.
here you're seeing that this is around the campfire, so you're definitely seeing like the characters be underlit, which you would around. So it's got kind of a mood to it.
Yeah, that's not bad. Okay.
You
I'm
know,
liking it better than the cover. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's
so
pretty good. I don't hate that. I'll let that live.
so that's anyway, that's the game, is which one do you want to read, which one do you want to get rid of, and then which one do you want. I think of it this way: which one would you, maybe rather than slab, which one would you want to have a poster of on your wall? You know,
Oh
so
yeah, obviously the one in the middle there, the Cthulhu one. I
so
mean,
that one
No,
is the slab. And then between these two, it's which one seems more like you'd want to read it, and which one would you rip and get rid of?
Prairie Gods, because I think that the other one is too cutesy.
Okay.
With trying to combine rockabilly.
But anyway, that is the game. So
Okay, all right, yeah.
and
Well,
as Jared said, you know, we're not actually ripping anything.
right.
So,
yeah.
so here's the rockabilly
Yeah.
vampire art.
Oh yeah,
Because some people
shitty.
say, "Oh, I wouldn't rip any of them. I would read them all." No. It's the game. We don't actually rip comics here. We're
Yeah,
not
but
your boy
that guy
Zach.
the guy that rips comic books that does the auctions is actually I hate that he rips comics when he gets mad, but he's actually very funny and entertaining. Peddling Pete. He got pissed at someone and he just ripped a Wonder Woman from 1947 in half and
Oh Jesus.
said, "Fuck you."
So, yeah, this is very much like I would say more like a pop art kind of, I don't know. It's not Archie, but it's not like 90s. You know, this isn't Rob Liefeld. So this is kind of somewhere in between. It's definitely more cartoony, but not
Yeah.
quite manga. So
That was like David Koresh on the right side there.
I think that's supposed, as I recall, that's the main character.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, and this has a wrestling thing going on as well. So there's a whole other culture that goes on with this.
Okay.
So at any rate, that's the game that we would usually see. And
I
then
definitely like the other two better than that.
okay.
But I'm sure that's better than anything Marvel and DC have put out in decades. Because now the new trend is to have covers with no title on them and a character that doesn't appear in the book. You know, it's like
Yeah.
this month we're gonna have all Spider-Woman pinup covers, and then it's a copy of a
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
she's never appeared in or something.
I tried explaining this to some guys who apparently only started reading comics 5 years ago, and they were like, well, it doesn't matter that the character doesn't appear in the book." You know, what?
Yeah, but it's like putting a Playboy cover on a copy of Field and Stream.
Yeah,
it's
I mean, then
they're
why did you
assuming they're
put
never going to open the book and never
Yeah,
know.
but why did you buy the book for? I mean, nothing means anything.
No, like
Because it's the world of Black
Yeah,
Rock.
but if nothing means anything, instead of buying that variant cover for $20, give me the $20, and
So
I'll buy
here's
5 comics that I like.
I'll give
here's
you my
another
credit
3
card.
random ones. They like.
Ooh, Baron
Hey.
Earth! I love Baron Earth.
Hey,
So which one would
make
you
that
read?
bigger
Which one
there.
would you
I
you
can't
slab,
see
and which one would you
my
rip?
old
I mean,
eyes. Bring it up. Okay. Let me see what you got there. Oh, the Futurians. That's like I heard about that. It's like guys from the early '70s that have
Yeah,
been brought back to do comics. Yeah, I wish I could get that book. I don't think any store orders it hardly. What is the one on the left called? Tales of the Urban Lizard, the
yeah.
Human Lizard, the Pitiful Human Lizard. Oh, it's a Silver Age parody. That could be fun,
Yeah.
sort of, if the
So,
logo was better.
so that's the
Fair.
thing is
Those
that
all look good.
if you do it right, it becomes, a choice of, oh, those all look either really bad, so then you're picking the least bad, or
Mhm.
it's a choice of, if you have ones that are all really good, it's like, oh, I want to read that Kirby, but I also want to read that, that
Uh,
Ditko book. Oh, and then there's a,
yeah,
there's a
you have to make
guillotine
it
book.
difficult.
So that,
Yeah. Do you ever do
so,
it with vintage comics or just with modern
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. I mean, we just go to Jared just goes to Mike's Amazing World and he looks up a date and finds comics from that date
yeah.
and shows them.
Usually
Oh,
it's like
okay.
EC in the 70s or Image in the 90s or EC from the 50s, kind of they're kind of related somehow. You don't usually see like Spawn next to 70s Ghost Rider next to like a 40s Flash Gordon or something.
Yeah, that's why I separated all my Silver Age and back comics from my more mod. I wanted them all to be pure in boxes where I could flip through and be immersed in that, like like it was a collection of someone that stopped collecting in 1970. It had a better feel to it. But when did that web? I just only heard about that web page you just mentioned about a month ago. How long has that been around?
20 years.
It is. I was going to
The
say
guy,
it's amazing. That's what it's called, but
the guy
it's
died like 9 months ago. His wife
it's not funny. I'm not
keep
laughing.
yeah, but his wife is keeping the website alive. But the guy
Okay.
died 9 years ago. He wasn't very old. He was like 55.
Okay, he was. You make me feel bad because I'm 59. That is the website is really brilliant because he, he has. I'm not. In case someone out there doesn't know about it, he has the comics all grouped by month, so you can see what books would have been out that month. But he thinks it out properly where he adjusts the 2 month window, so if it's
There we go.
comics out in April of 65, he shows you the books that came
Mhm.
out in February of 65 because those are the ones that were dated April, but the ones what would have actually have been, maybe I have it backwards, but he shows the books that would actually have been on the stands then. So April of 65, when I was born, the books wouldn't have been dated April 65. They would have been dated
Mhm.
June of 65. So he makes
Yeah.
that adjustment. So if you have a spinner rack, you can get comics and fill a spinner rack with the what would have been on the stand when you got married or when you were born, and that's, I think it's a really cool thing to see. And this guy on YouTube, this cheap comic collector, was saying in some stream I saw that he stores all his comics that way. That he stores them by month and year, I think. So it's not, you don't have a sequential run of Spider-Man. He'll have all these comics grouped together from that month, and I thought that's interesting to do it that way because then you're flipping through the box and you're flipping through the years, not just flipping through one title as it went.
Mhm.
Thought that I'd never heard of anyone organizing comics that way. It's really interesting. What do you got there? I'm
So
sorry, talking over you.
SVPT was asking if I could show them one at a time. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
Apollo, if you could throw this up so that I can show these one at
Oops.
a time so that hopefully people can get a better look at them. So there's Pitiful Human Lizard. And then this is the Conquerors of the Barren Earth.
Yeah,
And
that
I know that the
that thing used to
quality is not,
be actually. Yeah, that thing used to be a backup in the Brazilian titles. I'll see if I can find it here.
That's a girl. I just flipped back to the
yeah.
channel. I was looking at the comments. Yeah, that could be a good book.
And then this is the Futarians one. This was, Dave Cockrum.
Yeah,
So, and
Yeah,
then
that looks really cool.
of
yeah, but
the other
there
ones I
there are not.
showed, here's the Vampiro Rockabilly Vampiro Apocalypse. Here's A Girl Called Cthulhu. And then this one is Prairie Gods. So
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd rip the Rockabilly guy.
yeah.
But I would certainly want to get those other books you showed. That one with the Barbarian Girl and the Futurians. I've
Yep.
never. Yeah, those look good.
Yeah. The Futurians had only a Marvel graphic novel. Then it was supposed to be an ongoing in a small publisher. But the publisher went out of business after issue number 3, and the 4th issue was published as a number 0 in a different publisher.
Earlier we were talking about ads. Check this out on the back of this is the Futurians one.
And and one thing about the Futurians, it's never been reprinted in the USA. It's only been reprinted in France.
Well, another thing I hate is issue zeros. I have a lot of pet peeves.
Yeah, that
I
that
just
0
think
is
it's
supposed
really
to be number
stupid.
4. That 0 was supposed to be number 4. So
Why don't you just call it 4.5? I don't like zeros. Do they have
because it's
negative numbers? Have they started doing negative numbers
Oh,
yet?
Marvel did a whole event
Oh.
back in the 90s that was like -1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one
They're
of those.
fucking nuts, man. What a
They
bunch
were kind of
retarded
fun.
people.
Yeah, they were.
They were because the
Okay,
idea
I'm
was like
sorry.
Oh.
Get straight.
no, it was
Untold
kind of
Ti-
like Nick Fury before he was the leader of Shield would be the
Yeah,
Nick Fury.
Untold Tales of Spider-Man number -1 was the best because it's a story of Peter Parker's parents as agents of Shield.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I heard
mean-
that they did a revised story where they died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Didn't they show that in one of those Garfield Spider-Man movies and some
I don't-
pre-credit sequence?
yeah, I
think
don't
they showed
recall.
them.
I think those like -1s as like a stunt, like you're doing like one that's a fun one-off thing for your books where you're showing your characters before things started. That can be fun. I wouldn't want a whole series of that. It's kind of like I actually went back and read those assistant editor month books, and those were a lot of fun, but I wouldn't want those every month.
Oh no, yeah, those I remember those being fun, like getting a Conan the Barbarian with DC go-go checks on the top, stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. That was
exactly.
kind of fun. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was
Or,
just
Spider-Man where they they change the artist and the editors break in and are like, no, we're doing something else here. I mean,
yeah.
something that's fun that kind of breaks things up like once or twice a year, I think it can be fun if it's done correctly, but I don't want a constant stream of it. That's why those like Elseworlds and the Dead Earth and the Pulp annuals that DC did in the 90s were fun because you were just getting one for each book and then they were done. I wasn't getting like, Gunslinger Wonder Woman like 90, like for 2 years. I was getting it once 1 year.
Yeah, like now they're doing a Superman comic set in the Gotham by Gaslight universe.
Yeah.
Why? It doesn't really make it. The whole point is that you put Batman in a situation that you'd never be in, and you do one story around it. You're not even supposed to have Superman in. There's no Superman.
Yeah.
Well, what is your take?
You do the Justice Riders once, and that's all you need.
I'm sure you guys have already discussed. See, I don't normally see this show because I'm usually out with my wife on Friday night, but I'm sure you've already done a take in the last few weeks on this absolute Batman. What do you think of that?
I didn't even look at it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not. I've read Batman here and there. Not a huge Batman fan, so whatever.
Yeah,
What do you
Jared
think,
doesn't
Paul?
buy superhero. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Well, I at first was thinking, man, I was pissed about it, because it's like taking another American hero and dragging it. But then my friend that runs Gotham City Comics was kind of explaining that, okay, this is a completely different world where Batman's parents were killed a whole different way. It's not that. And he starts telling me about the story, and I think, because I had heard that his bat symbol is actually a removable axe blade,
Yeah,
and then he
apparently.
takes it out
Yeah.
and he has an axe, and I was like, man, what are they doing? That's insane. But he describes how he'll cut off the hands of bad guys and then he'll tell them where the nearest hospital is, and says, go there. He says, down, or it may actually be that way. It says they can reattach your hand if you get there quick enough. It's just like,
It
I
feels
was
like
like, man, this is so. I said, actually, hold a copy of that for me. I kind of would like to read that. That's so warped, and he's sold out of them now. So that's the big hit right now. And now they're going to do an absolute Superman and an absolute Wonder Woman that'll also be equally fucked up. And so I guess that's what's selling now is really fucked up versions of classic American heroes. But I never thought I would say I always thought you'll never convince me, and he did convince me. So maybe it'll be good. And the artwork didn't look terrible either. So I don't know. Um,
I
I'm a
think
hypocrite.
they're putting their best foot forward with talent on a lot of those books. They get their best artists and their best writers, and they're saying, "Hey, what do you want to do if you could reinvent this?" Kind of
Yeah,
the same way they did with
the
the
the White
Ultimate.
Knight, the White Knight universe apparently was well liked, and the stories were good. Sean Murphy does a good. I know that he does a good job because I have a couple of his graphic novels.
Mhm.
I don't know
So
what the White Knight is.
uh, they did a sort of an Elseworld where, and it had a series. It had multiple series. One series would end and another begin, and the Joker kind of gets cured, and so but is not held responsible for his actions, and but now he wants to be a productive member of society. So bat so Batman is kind of demonized after that,
Okay.
and it was its own thing.
Well, I, I, I mean, people think I'm just a total reactionary and I hate everything. A few people that watch my channel, but I mean, I want to like things. I don't really want to hate everything, but I can't like things that are obviously attempts to degrade the culture and to bring our country down, and really the whole world. I mean, down because I see it around me. I see things being done that can't just be stupid mistakes. They're so stupid that it has to be intentional. It's just like it's no, that's not just a stupid to get completely political. It's not. Oh, they're just accidentally opening the border and letting millions of people in that aren't that. And Venezuela has no crime now because all the criminals are here. It's like, oh man, bad things. It's there's people that are in power, and it's not who you think it is, and that are really running the show, and they hate us, and they want us gone. And it's just like the comic books, 'cause they
Well,
these bad guys.
there's good stuff out there. You just
Mm.
gotta
Yeah.
look for it. It's the old finding the signal among the noise, and you know, there's stuff that out there that's good that just doesn't appeal to me, and that's fine. I
Mhm.
mean, if music or comics or movies that people enjoy it and it makes them happy, to me that's fine, even if it doesn't speak to me.
Yeah, but when it's something that meant a lot to me as a kid, like the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and then they do something really degrading to that character, it's almost like hearing that girl you had a crush on back in junior high school is now a prostitute or something. And it's just like, what is that song? My angel is the centerfold. It's like it's just like what happened, man? No, I don't want to hear that my old friend is now on Kensington Avenue with his head down at his feet on fentanyl. I just and these are my childhood heroes, and it's like if you want to create some effed up story, make up your own new hero, and don't mess with these characters.
I will say this: I've been reading the new Fantastic Four series. Actually, think it's really good. They're usually one and done science mysteries.
Well, I have to say I can't look at comics because for the last 2.5 years, the nearest comic store is an
Mm,
hour
yeah,
away. But my friend gets his comics in and online. I'm seeing them days before they are out on Wednesday through my live stream, And I have to say those Fantastic Four. I think Alex Ross is doing all the covers.
He's
The
doing a lot of
covers,
covers, yeah.
the covers are amazing. I don't know what the artwork inside looks like.
The artwork inside is solid, and the stories are solid. The most
Okay.
recent issue has Reed and Johnny digging in the basement, opening a portal, and then having to figure out how to close it. And all I'm going to say is it involves them having to get a skull that vomits blood. Not in a gross way, because it's very cartoony, but it's a fun science adventure that stays true to the idea of these characters as running into a problem and then solving it.
Well, that sounds perfectly cool. I'd give that a try. I wouldn't rip it or burn it or whatever the thing you're supposed to slab it.
Yeah. But the point is to me that I've talked to a lot of people like, oh, the Fantastic Four. I'm not going to try and convince anybody they need to read any of the Marvel current stuff, but I think that the current Fantastic Four is accessible. It's fun. It's smart in that, they're trying to just have good science mystery adventures, which from my perspective is what when the original book hit its stride, that's what it was about.
Yeah. Yeah. It was at its peak around 1965, 66, I think.
So on a totally different thing, I'm going to ask, I have to go here shortly, but has anybody ever heard of this guy?
I can't see anything. Make him bigger.
Richard Moore.
Richard Moore, no.
So he did a bunch of let's see if I can find something that's appropriate. He did a bunch of adult stuff, but so let me see if I can find something. So kind of fantasy Western gunslinger stuff. And then he did a series called Boneyard that was about a bunch of, cartoony monsters in a graveyard. This guy's one of the comic writer artists that I really enjoyed for a period of time, who has largely dropped out of the industry because he could not make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's once again not for everyone. But it's somebody trying to do their own take on a genre mashup that we haven't seen a lot of. So,
all right. So we're coming near 3 hours,
Yep.
so we're going to wind up.
Okay.
Anything you guys got going on? I'm going to put the links on your channels. Yeah, you haven't done. I can see. I have your channels open. I can see you haven't done anything in a while, Eric.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I used to show.
You're in trouble with the principal.
No, no, just life gets in the way of things. I used to do a lot of, books and that kind of stuff. Show up on podcasts here and there, but it's been,
Well, in any case, I'm going to post links of both of your channels here in the chat so that people can go visit.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to do a live stream starting in the morning. My friend that I keep referencing, Kevin Johnson, that owns that comic store in Mesa, Arizona, even though that's across the country from me, I consider it my local comic store because it's cool to be a friend of someone that runs a comic store. He gets a buy of comics. It's like, what's in it? I get the kind of first crack, but he's going to a toy show in Mesa tomorrow morning, which is the comic book adjacent, because there's like great comic book dealers there. And he's looking for monster toys because it's so close to Halloween. Some people think, well, I'll bring my spooky stuff out, but of course we like that stuff all year. But so there'll be probably monster stuff. So he's going to take his phone and he's going to come on my StreamYard live stream, and we're going to virtually go around this toy store. And then he's going to go to his store, and hopefully some of my other friends will appear, and because on Saturday my wife does this work from home job upstairs, so I have to keep it kind of quiet. So I stay down here with the dog, and I just do a live stream. And so then he just bought a big stack of records this high, and I want to look through that pile of records. So maybe we'll do that once he gets to his store. It looks like they're like kids records from the 70s, Power Records, the book and comics that
Yeah.
anyway. And it looks like others, the GI Joe Adventure Team records that go with the set of the adventure set and all that. I don't even know what's in the pile, so I'm a few years older than Kevin, so because I was a kid in the '70s, so I could tell him kind of, Of course, he knows too. But I just want to look at those records, and I don't know what else I'll be doing, but it's going to be one of those epic long live streams more than likely, and so that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing tomorrow. And
Well, I
what?
won't be able to show up because my dad is having his old the meeting for his old army buddies from the colonial war,
Yeah,
and so I'll be going with him. It's 70 miles away, so
yeah,
there will be a long lunch, and we're also visiting my sister there.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for
nice to
everybody
meet you,
for
Eric.
watching. Nice chatting with everybody.
Yeah.
And, enjoy the rest of your evenings.
All
Yeah,
right, take care.
thank you both for coming and for keeping me company since Wilson is in the New York Comic Con and Jared has a thing with his family, so they couldn't make it. But next week we'll go back to normal in Jared Osborne's channel, and it'll be a more normal show.
All
Okay,
right.
and thank you for staying. Thank you
As
all for
opposed
staying
to
with me for
abnormal.
this. Thank you for staying with me for all those 3 hours, and I will be seeing you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye, everybody. I'm trying to end the stream because I'm used to doing my own streams.
Yeah, no, let me
I
end the
try to
stream.
press buttons.